You've probably been told your whole life that if you're kind enough, loving enough, supportive enough, then the right man will stay. You'll keep his interest, win his commitment, and finally feel secure. But let me ask you something, if that's true. Why do so many strong, smart, self-aware women find themselves in the exact same place, anxious, second-guessing, and slowly watching the energy shift? Why is it that the more effort you put in, the more he seems to pull away? Let's confront a hard truth. It's not that you're not enough. It's not that you need to do more to prove your worth. It's that some of the habits you've been conditioned to believe are loving are quietly destroying your perceived value in his eyes. You're not broken. You're not desperate, but you may be unknowingly overgiving, self-abandoning, or showing up in ways that signal the exact opposite of what you intend. Now, before you start blaming yourself or beating yourself up, stop. This isn't about shame. It's about power. Because once you see these habits clearly, you can change them. You can shift the dynamic, and you can step into a kind of grounded, magnetic, unshakable self-worth that makes the right men respect you and the wrong ones disqualify themselves. Early. That's the love stoic way. No chasing, no performing, no emotional overextensions, just clarity, strength, and truth. This video is not going to give you sugar-coated, surface-level advice. What I'm about to share will challenge what you've been taught. It will force you to look at yourself honestly. And yes, it may sting a little, but that's how growth works. That's how we break free from patterns that no longer serve us. This is for the woman who's done being available to men who don't show up. This is for the woman who's ready to embody her value rather than try to earn it. By the end of this video, you'll have a crystal clear understanding of the 6 habits that are lowering your value in his eyes, and exactly what to do instead. You'll stop feeling like love is a performance and start showing up with the quiet confidence that makes a man lean in, not drift away. Every part of this matters, and it all connects. So don't skip ahead, because habit number 4 is where everything shifts. And by the time we get to number 6, you'll see why losing yourself in love isn't noble. It's dangerous. Let's begin. 1, over-investing. Before he earns it, it always starts with good intentions, doesn't it? You meet someone new and suddenly your heart wakes up. There's laughter, shared interests, and that familiar rush that says, maybe this is it. So you do what you've been told good women do. You show up, you care, you make time, you give. But here's what most women don't realize until it's too late. There is a point at which your generosity stops being magnetic and starts being unbalanced. Point where care without reciprocation becomes a quiet surrender of self-worth. And in that imbalance, something fundamental shifts, not just in him, but in how he sees you. Because when you start investing deeply your energy, your time, your emotional intimacy before a man has shown he's truly earned it, what you're really doing is breaking the law of reciprocity. It's not about manipulation. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about something far more ancient, more primal, more deeply wired into. Our psychology, humans, respect what is earned. We cherish what is rare. We value what isn't handed over too easily. And yet so many women, especially those with big hearts, feel that the way to secure love is to give more of themselves faster, more openly, more consistently, hoping it will inspire the same in return. But the reality is this: the more you overinvest, the more you disrupt the natural rhythm of emotional connection. Because if you're always the one reaching out, always the one adjusting, always the one caring more, than what message are you sending, even unintentionally, that your energy isn't precious, that your attention doesn't have to be earned, that your love is a reward without criteria, and that over time destroys your perceived value in his eyes, not because you're not inherently valuable, but because you've started treating your own energy like it's disposable. Think about it. If someone gives you something constantly, effortlessly, without asking anything in return, you might appreciate it at first, but eventually you take it for granted. The effort loses its weight. The gesture fades into the background. This isn't just theory. It's stoicism. In action, in Stoic philosophy, value is tied to intention and discernment. To act from virtue means you don't give away what is sacred. Your time, your focus, your care without reason, without merit, without balance. Overinvesting isn't just about texting too often or planning all the dates. It's deeper than that. It's emotional. The availability that goes unmatched. It's prioritizing his needs over your own before you Even know if he's earned a seat at your table, it's adjusting your schedule, your sleep, your mindset to fit someone who hasn't yet proven that he's worthy of that space, your life. And what often drives this behavior is fear, a quiet anxiety that if you don't give enough, he'll lose interest, that you need to do more to keep him engaged. But here's the paradox, that fear-based giving doesn't create safety, it creates instability, creates a dynamic where you're constantly reaching, hoping, chasing, and performing. Instead of observing, receiving, discerning in the man, he feels it. He may not be able to name it, but he feels the imbalance. He senses that you're emotionally all in, whether or not he's done anything to deserve that. And in response, he pulls back, not because he's cruel, not even because he's consciously ungrateful, but because the human psyche does not value what is handed over too easily. This is where stoicism becomes your anchor. It teaches you to hold your center, to offer only what aligns with your values, to give from strength, not from fear. When you operate from a love, stoic mindset, you don't rush to prove, you don't pour endlessly hoping to be seen. You pause, you allow space, you observe, and in doing so, you give a man something rare in today's world, the opportunity to earn your trust, your attention, your emotional access. And let me be clear, this isn't about being cold or closed off. It's about self-regulation. It's about choosing presence over pursuit. You can be warm, kind, engaging, and still be discerning. You can be deeply feminine and still have boundaries of steel, because the woman who chooses not to overinvest, who offers her energy proportionally to what she's receiving, she stands out, she becomes unforgettable, not because she's playing games, but because she respects herself so deeply that she doesn't try to prove her worth, she simply lives it. Ask yourself, are you investing out of strength or out of scarcity? Are you giving because it feels aligned and mutual, or because you're afraid of what might happen if you don't do, how to sit in the space of uncertainty without filling it with anxious effort? That's the real challenge, and that's the real transformation. You don't attract a healthy man by over-functioning for him. You attract him by meeting him in the middle with mutual energy, mutual interest, mutual investment, because when you overgive too early, you rob yourself of the ability to truly know him. You get so busy proving that you're enough that you forget to ask the most important question, is he enough for you? That's what Stoicism returns you to, the ability to observe, to assess, to withhold premature emotional attachment until it is warranted to give with wisdom, not desperation. And that's where your power lives, because when a man sees that you are generous but grounded, open but measured, caring but not careless with your love, it changes how he shows up. He respects you more. He steps up more. He tries harder, not because you demanded it, but because your energy requires it. Your demands it. That's the essence of high value, not in how much you give, but in how wisely you choose to give it. That's love stoic. That's alignment. And that's the standard. So the next time you're tempted to show just how kind, thoughtful, and available you can be, pause, wait, observe, let him reveal his character first. Let him earn his way into the spaces of your life that are sacred. Let him show up with action, not just intention. Only then, only when it's mutual, do you give more, because you are not a prize to be won through effort alone. You are a sovereign being whose love is an invitation, not a transaction. Hold your value, and the right man will rise to meet it. To losing yourself in the relationship, there's something intoxicating about falling for someone when everything feels light, effortless, magnetic. You smile more, time passes faster, your whole body lights up at the thought of him, and without even realizing it, your schedule shifts, your priorities bend you, skip workouts, you cancel on friends, you postpone your own plans. Why? Because it feels good to be close to him, because it's new, because it's exciting. But underneath that joy, there's a quiet erosion happening, one that's invisible at first, until one day you look up and realize that somewhere along the way you stopped orbiting your own life and started revolving around his. This is how it begins, not with a demand, not with control, but with the soft, seductive temptation to fuse your identity into the relationship. And in doing so, piece by piece, you give away the very things that made you captivating in the first place. The truth is, no high-value man wants to be your world. He wants to be part of it. He fell for you because you had a fire, you had a rhythm, you had a life of your own. But when that fire dims, when that rhythm gets hijacked by his schedule, his desires, his mood, he doesn't feel more loved. He feels more pressure. And that pressure doesn't deepen connection. It suffocates it in stoicism. We talk often about self-governance, about not allowing external conditions to determine our internal equilibrium. And yet in relationships, many women unconsciously abandon that principle. You give your emotional weather report over to him. If he texts, you're elated. If he pulls back, you spiral. If he's distant, you chase. If he's warm, you open. That's not love. That's dependency. And dependency is never attractive. It's fragile. It's fragile. Places your power outside of you. And anytime your peace relies on someone else's, consistency, you've already lost control. Think about your life before him. What made you feel alive? What filled your cup? What goals drove you? What boundaries protect your time, your soul, your momentum? When you start sacrificing those for the illusion of intimacy, you don't just lose your edge, you lose your center. And a woman without her center becomes anxious, reactive, overly accommodating. She becomes the opposite of what Stoicism teaches us to be: self-directed, intentional, grounded love. Stoic doesn't mean being cold or detached. It means remaining rooted. It means remaining rooted. It means staying true to your rhythm even when your heart is activated. It means remembering that love is not about disappearing into someone else. It's about showing up fully as yourself and letting that self be seen, respected, and valued. Because when a man senses that you've made him the center of your universe, he instinctively begins to pull away. Not out of malice, but because the polarity shifts. The becomes heavy. The spark that was born out of your independence starts to fade under the weight of constant emotional availability. And in that shift, he doesn't feel admired. He feels responsible for your emotional state. That's not love, that's burden. And when a man feels burdened instead of inspired, he withdraws. So what's the solution? It's not to love less, it's to love with boundaries. It's to remember that maintaining your own orbit is not selfish. It's essential. Because when you show up with your own passions intact, your friendships strong, your goals alive, you bring depth to the relationship, you bring layers, you bring the kind of richness that doesn't fade after the honeymoon phase. And most importantly, you maintain your self-respect. Ask yourself, have I replaced my own fulfillment with the relationship? Have I become less of who I was before him? Or more, am I still connected to the woman I was when he first met me, the one who had a full life, a full heart, and a full sense of self-worth that wasn't dependent on any man's attention? These aren't casual questions. They're vital, because the moment you lose your identity and love, you not only weaken the attraction, you damage your self-esteem. And that self-esteem is the foundation for everything. How you communicate, how you handle conflict, how you walk away when it's not right. When you hold on to yourself, you give him something powerful to connect to. When you lose yourself, you become a shadow of your former self. And even if he stays, he won't stay engaged. The irony is that many women do from love. You want it to work so badly that you think the way to keep him is to mold yourself around him. But healthy love doesn't require that. It invites individuality, celebrates autonomy. It thrives when two whole people choose each other from a place of overflow, not from lack. That's stoicism in action. That's love, stoic. And that's what keeps passion alive. So next time you find yourself tempted to cancel plans, to your routines, to over-accommodate his needs at the expense of your own pause, ask yourself, if I keep doing this, who will I become? What will I have left? If he walks away, because the right man won't just respect your independence, he'll be drawn to it, rise to meet it, he'll pursue it. Not because you're hard to get, but because you're hard to forget, because your energy doesn't beg, it invites. And that kind of invitation is irresistible. So if you felt that spark dimming, if you've noticed yourself compromising too much, if your days have started revolving around us, instead of me, it's time to course correct. Not with anger, not with drama, but with quiet power. Reclaim your time, reignite your passions, reinforce your boundaries, and do it not to get him back, but to get you back. Because once you return to yourself, everything shifts. Your energy sharpens your standards, rise, and the man who's meant for you won't be threatened by your wholeness. He'll be inspired by it. He'll see that he doesn't need to complete you. He just gets the privilege of standing beside a woman who's already complete. And that is the essence of true connection. Not need, but choice, not dependency, but mutual growth. That's love, stoica. That's stoicism applied to the chaos of modern romance. And that's your power. If you're feeling this message deep in your bones, I want you to do two things right now. First, hit that like button if this is speaking to your experience. Second, drop a comment that says, number one, if you know you've been guilty of losing yourself in love, but you're ready to reclaim your identity. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. There's more truth, more fire, and more tools coming that will change the way you love. Forever stay with me. We're just getting started. 3, tolerating disrespect. Even in small forms, disrespect rarely enters a relationship. Wearing bold colors or shouting through a megaphone. It doesn't arrive with bruises or ultimatums most of the time. It whispers. It arrives late. It shows up in a missed call, a forgotten plan, a sarcastic joke that stings a little more than it should. It appears in interruptions when you speak in a pattern of not listening in the way your emotions are dismissed as dramatic or inconvenient. And when it happens, your first instinct might be to excuse it. He's tired, he's stressed, he's not usually like this. You convince yourself it's no big deal. You don't want to seem difficult. You tell yourself you're being too sensitive and you let it slide. But here's the truth that many women don't realize until too late. Every time, minimize those small acts of disrespect. You lower the bar for how you're allowed to be treated. And eventually, you start to feel it, not in one big moment, but over time. You feel it when he starts texting less, when you sense his effort fading, when your needs begin to feel like a burden. But the most dangerous part is not his shift. It's your adaptation to it. You begin adjusting your expectations to match his inconsistencies. You start accepting crumbs where you once expected effort. You go quiet about things that bother you because deep down you're afraid to rock the boat. And that silence becomes a lesson for him, a message that says, this is okay, I'll tolerate this, I'll stay. That's the real consequence of tolerating subtle disrespect. Not the individual act, but the cumulative erosion of your standards, the slow descent into a version of you that walks on eggshells, that smiles when she's hurting, that pretends she's fine, just to keep the peace. And peace, when built on self-abandonment, isn't peace at all. It's performance and stoicism. We are taught not to be ruled by emotions, but this isn't about emotional suppression. It's about emotional mastery. And mastery means noticing the micro moments that chip away at your dignity and choosing not to betray yourself for the sake of comfort, because discomfort will come either way, either in the short-term confrontation of a boundary or in the long-term ache of knowing you've tolerated too much. Which do you choose when you ignore those little moments? You teach him that your feelings are negotiable, that your presence is guaranteed, that your respect can be earned and then squandered without consequence. And over time, he adapts. He gives less. He tries less. He cares less. Why? Because you haven't required more. We teach people how to treat us, not just by what we say, but by what we allow. And when you excuse or justify poor behavior, you're not protecting the relationship. You're sabotaging it. True respect is not built in grand gestures. It's built in the mundane, in how someone shows up when it's inconvenient, in whether they acknowledge your emotions, even when it's uncomfortable, in whether they keep their word when no one's watching. If you don't assert your value in those moments, you teach him that he doesn't need to protect the connection, that your forgiveness is infinite, that your patience is unconditional. And that is how women who once had high standards find themselves in relationships where they feel unseen, unheard, and ultimately unloved. But here's what Stoicism teaches us. Pain is not the enemy. Avoiding pain at the cost of your integrity is. And every time you let something go, just to keep things smooth, you add another weight to your heart. That weight accumulates. It becomes resentment. It becomes exhaustion. It becomes disconnection from him, and more dangerous, from yourself. If you feel like the man you're seeing doesn't respect you the way he used to, ask yourself, where did you first let it slide? What was the moment you felt hurt but stayed silent? What was the first sarcastic joke you laughed off, even though it stung? That moment was your turning point. And if you want to reclaim your value, you have to go back to that moment and do the one thing you didn't do. Then speak kindly, firmly, without drama. You don't need to attack him to assert yourself. You just need to stand in your truth. A simple sentence that didn't feel good can carry more power than 100 silent nights. A clear, calm boundary. I expect. Communication, even if plans change, can shift the entire dynamic, but only if it's followed by consistency. Because boundaries without enforcement are just wishes. Love stoic means that you don't chase validation, you don't argue your worth, you don't scream to be seen. You simply show up as a woman who respects herself and let that energy do the talking. And yes, Some men will fade when you do this good. And the ones who leave when you enforce your standards were never meant to stay. They were there to teach you what happens when you abandon yourself. And the ones who stay, they'll rise, they'll adjust, they'll meet you where you stand because they recognize the value of a woman who doesn't flinch when it comes to her own worth. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about disciplining reaction, about knowing the difference between what you can control, your boundaries, your responses, your energy, and what you can't, his effort, his integrity, his emotional availability. And once you focus on your half of the equation, everything becomes clear. You no longer take half efforts personally. You don't try to decode mixed signals. You don't justify the unjustifiable. You simply observe and you decide. That's power. That's clarity. That's love without self-betrayal. And it starts by refusing to let the small things slide because they're not small. They're signals. Signals that reveal character. Signals that tell you who you're dealing with. Signals that protect your future self. If you're wise enough to listen, so if you're sitting in a relationship right now where the signs are subtle but persistent, if he forgets things that matter to you, if he makes jokes that land like jabs, if he disappears emotionally and expects you to be okay with it, pause, ask yourself, is this the kind of relationship I'd want for someone? Love for my daughter, my sister, my best friend? And if the answer is no, then why do you think it's okay for you? Stoicism is not about emotional detachment. It's about rootedness, about not letting someone else's inconsistency shake your sense of what's right. Love Stoic is about showing up with your full heart, but only where that heart is protected, not by promises, but by patterns, not by charm, but by characters. And character reveals itself not in how he treats you when he wants something, but in how he treats you when it's inconvenient, when he's tired, when you need something, when the spotlight is off. That's when the truth surfaces. That's when respect either shows up or doesn't. And if it doesn't, you must for yourself, because you can't be deeply loved without first being deeply respected. And respect doesn't come from silence. It comes from strength, from saying no when something crosses a line, from making it clear that your peace is non-negotiable, from being willing to lose someone. Rather than lose yourself. That's not cold. That's clarity. That's not pride. That's preservation. So don't wait for a major betrayal to wake up. Pay attention to the micro moments, because those moments will either build a relationship that lasts or reveal the one that never will. And your response to those moments, that's your part of the story. That's where your power lives. That's where your love becomes rooted, not in fear or fantasy, but in truth, in value, in stoicism. And that more than anything else determines the kind of man you'll attract, the kind of relationship you'll experience, and the kind of woman you become in the process for being too emotionally available without reciprocity. There's a quiet danger in opening your heart too quickly, especially when it's met with silence. It begins with a simple desire to connect, to be real, to create something authentic. So you share, you listen, you reveal parts of yourself that feel intimate, sacred, and sincere. You offer emotional depth, vulnerability, compassion, and understanding, all in the hopes that this man, this moment, this connection might just be different. And while it may feel like emotional maturity, like courageous openness, it can quickly slide into something else, overexposure, because when your emotional availability isn't mirrored back when you're pouring into a man who's barely lifting the lid on his own inner world, you're not building intimacy. You're building imbalance. And imbalance always leads to resentment, confusion, and pain. This is the paradox. We live in a culture that encourages women to be emotionally expressive and men to be emotionally restrained. And yet somehow we still expect to meet each other in the middle. But what happens when we don't? When one person is opening up, checking in, validating, supporting, and the other is simply receiving emotional intimacy as a dance, not a monologue. And when you're the only one dancing, you look around and realize there's no music, no rhythm, no reciprocation, just you giving more and more, hoping he'll eventually meet you where you are. And the more you give, the less he values it. Not because he's heartless, but because what's given too freely, too early, without discernment, loses its weight. Stoicism teaches us to observe before we engage, to study before we speak, to withhold our deepest truths until the person before us has shown they can hold them with reverence. But when you lead with vulnerability before trust is established, when you offer emotional access before boundaries are tested, you risk giving the most precious parts of you to someone who hasn't earned them. And in that space, the dynamic shifts. He no longer feels called to rise. He no longer feels invited to share. He simply sits back and enjoys the benefits of your emotional labor without feeling responsible for any of it. And that's where things get dangerous. You start to question why he's pulling away, why he's not opening up, why he seems so closed off, so distracted, so emotionally flat. But the real question isn't about him, it's about you. Why did you give so much so soon? Why did you assume that emotional availability would naturally lead to emotional connection? Why did you decide that love had to be proven through self-exposure rather than shared presence? This is where the love. Stoic mindset becomes essential because it teaches you that your emotions are not a weapon or a currency. They are sacred, and sacred things must be protected, not given away recklessly in hopes of being seen. A Stoic woman does not deny her feelings. She holds them with dignity. She observes whether the person before her is capable of depth before offering her own. She allows space for a man to reveal his inner world, not because she demands it, but because she knows that without mutual vulnerability, there is no foundation. And here's the part that's hardest to admit. Many women offer too much, too soon, not because they feel safe, but because they feel anxious. You want to speed up the connection. You want to skip the uncertainty. You want to build closeness through sharing instead of slowing down to observe. But real connection cannot be rushed. It has to unfold. And if a man isn't opening up, if he's not emotionally responsive, if he's not asking questions, if he's not meeting you where you are, it's not your job to compensate for that. It's your job to notice it, to hold your energy, to protect your heart. Emotional availability without reciprocity is a recipe for depletion. You'll end up feeling emotionally exhausted, confused, and unseen, not because you're too much, but because you gave too much to someone who couldn't receive it with the same care. And when that happens, you begin to doubt yourself. You wonder if you were too intense, too deep, too honest, but you weren't. You were simply out of sync with the person in front of you. And rather than adjusting your emotional volume, what you needed was to pause and see if it was even tuned in to the same frequency. Emotional maturity doesn't mean constant openness. It means discernment. It means knowing when to share, how much to share, and with whom. It means giving in proportion to what you're receiving, not as a manipulation tactic, but as a practice of self-respect. When a man sees that you don't rush into vulnerability, that you don't share your entire emotional history on the first date, that you hold yourself with grace and mystery, he notices, he respects it. He wonders what it would take to earn more of you. And that curiosity is where real attraction begins, because real intimacy isn't built on oversharing. It's built on resonance, on reciprocity, on emotional equality. It's built when both people bring their full selves to the table, voluntarily, gradually, and with intention. Love Stoic means you're not afraid to feel, but you're also not afraid to wait, to hold your emotion close until the space is safe, to watch how he responds when you express something real. Does he lean in? Does he listen? Does he offer something in return? Or does he go silent change? The subject deflect. Those answers tell you everything you need to know. And when you pay attention, you save yourself from chasing connection. Where there is none, you stop trying to earn depth from someone who lives on the surface. You stop over-explaining your feelings to someone who isn't equipped to receive them. You start protecting your peace instead of sacrificing it for potential, because Stoicism isn't about shutting down. It's about filtering. It's about offering your heart, not as a desperate bid for closeness, but as a meaningful gift for the one who proves they can handle it. And when you operate from that place, you no longer attract men who take without ever giving. You begin attracting men who listen, who match your energy, who value what you offer because you didn't give it away for free. They respect you because you respected yourself. They rise to meet you because your emotional depth wasn't poured into a vacuum. It was held, measured, and shared with care. So if you've been the woman who always texts first, who always checks in, who always opens up while he stays quiet, this is your moment to shift. You don't need to become cold. You just need to become clear. Give less when you're getting less, not out of punishment, but out of principle. Share less when he's not creating space for more, not out of spite, but out of self-awareness. And when the right man comes along, he'll feel the difference. He won't just be impressed by your emotional intelligence. He'll be moved by it. He'll feel drawn to it. And most importantly, he'll reciprocate it, because in a world full of noise, The woman who shares with discernment becomes unforgettable. She becomes the standard. She becomes the invitation for something deeper, something real, something earned that is love, stoic that is stoicism in love, and that is your path forward. If this part of the message hit home, if you've seen yourself in these words and feel ready to shift how you love and who you offer, your heart to don't keep it to yourself like this video, and comment number 1 below to let me know you're walking this new path. And if you're not already subscribed, now is the time. Hit that button and stay connected, because this journey of loving without losing yourself is just beginning. 5, prioritizing his needs over your own. There's a narrative many women have absorbed since they were young that love means putting others first, that being nurturing means being available, that the more selfless you are, the more lovable you become. And so you grow up believing that to be chosen, to be kept, to be valued, you must be the one who compromises first, who sacrifices more, who bends to make things work. You begin to measure your worth through your ability to accommodate. And when you fall for someone, it becomes second nature. His schedule takes precedence. His comfort is prioritized. His moods dictate the tone of the day, and all of it feels like love. Or at least it looks like love. But over time, it doesn't feel empowering. It feels exhausting, because what you've really done is place his needs at the center of your existence. And in the process, you've quietly erased your own. It starts small. You pick a restaurant. He prefers you cancel plans with friends to see him. You brush aside your exhaustion to be there for him. You ignore your own discomfort because he seems overwhelmed. Tired, distant, or stressed, you become his emotional landing pad, his peace, his flexibility, his everything. And on the surface, it looks like loyalty, it looks like devotion. But underneath it, you are slowly building a relationship on the condition that your needs don't matter as much. And here's the painful part. He learns that too, not because you said it out loud, but because every time you put his needs above yours, you confirm a silent rule. What you want is more important than what I want. And over time, this dynamic becomes the new normal. He becomes used to being prioritized. You become used to being invisible, not because he demanded it, but because you offered it freely, consistently, and without boundaries. And the moment you try to reassert your needs to pull the balance back, it feels like conflict. It feels like resistance. He might say, "You've changed," or "Why are you being difficult?" But the truth is, you didn't change. You just finally tried to take up space in a dynamic where you had been shrinking for too long. And stoicism, one of the most powerful virtues, temperance, the ability to know balance, to act with moderation, to understand where the line lies between generosity and self-betrayal. Love, stoic, doesn't mean you're cold or guarded or emotionally unavailable. It means that your love flows from a place of alignment, not performance. It means you're capable of great care, but that care is not endless. It is not offered to someone who repeatedly shows you they are more invested in receiving than reciprocating. You see, prioritizing a man's needs above your own doesn't make you valuable. It makes you forgettable. Because the very act of consistently diminishing yourself teaches him that you're a background character in his story, not the author of your own, and no man can truly respect, let alone deeply love a woman who doesn't stand for herself. That's the hard truth. Love cannot thrive in imbalance. Desire cannot survive in worship. The more you elevate him, the smaller you become in the dynamic. And eventually that imbalance collapses the relationship entirely. And what's left a woman who once felt vibrant and alive, now questioning everything, wondering why she's so drained, wondering why he no longer tries, wondering how she went from being his priority to barely being considered. And often she doesn't even blame him. She blames herself. She thinks, maybe I wasn't enough, when in reality, she was too much for a dynamic that required her to disappear in order to be loved. That is not love. That is self-erasure disguised as connection. True love asks you to show up as your whole self, not to merge, not to shrink, not to constantly give in order to be worthy, but to meet, to match, to move together with equal footing. And when that's not happening, when the majority of the emotional labor is falling on you, it's not a relationship, it's emotional codependency. So ask yourself, when was the last time your needs were the priority? When was the last time he adjusted his schedule for you? When was the last time he listened deeply without making it about him? When was the last time you said no and it was respected without guilt? or pushback. These questions aren't meant to make you defensive. They're meant to wake you up, because a woman who doesn't make space for her own needs doesn't just suffer. She disappears. She disappears in her own story. She lives at the mercy of someone else's preferences. And that's not a life rooted in sovereignty. That's emotional servitude. Stoicism teaches us not to allow our peace to depend on the external. And yet when your emotional world revolves around a man's reactions, needs, and moods, you've already given away the very center of your power. You can't feel safe if you're constantly contorting. You can't feel loved. If your own needs are buried under the weight of his, you can't feel respected. If you're the only one doing the compromising love, Stoic reminds you that balance isn't just nice, it's necessary, that your needs matter, that your boundaries matter, that your joy, your preferences, your energy, your time, these things are sacred. And when someone repeatedly ignores them or benefits from your silence about them, that's not love, that's exploitation. Even if it's unconscious, even if he's not trying to hurt you. Because here's the truth, no one will advocate for your needs if you won't. No one will protect your peace if you don't first decide it's worth protecting. And the more you abandon yourself for the sake of closeness, the more you create distance between who you are and who you're pretending to be in the relationship, and that gap becomes unbearable. So how do you shift? How do you return to a place of balance? You start small. You say no when something doesn't feel right. You stop canceling on yourself for the sake of his comfort. You notice where your needs have been chronically unmet. And you start expressing them not with apology, not with defensiveness, but with clarity. You remind yourself that your needs are not burdens. They are indicators of your humanity. And if a man cannot honor them, he does not deserve your energy. It's that simple. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable at first. If you've built a relationship on overgiving, then balance will feel like resistance. If you've normalized putting him first, then putting yourself first will feel selfish. But that discomfort is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something different, something healthier, something rooted in self-respect. And right, man, he won't just adjust. He'll appreciate it. He'll want you to take up space. He'll want to hear what you need. He'll want to meet you in the middle, because he'll recognize that your willingness to honor yourself is what makes you a woman worth building with. Not because you do everything for him, but because you know how to do what's right for you. And that, above all else, is the foundation of enduring love. Love that doesn't drain love, that doesn't demand your silence. Love that doesn't require your disappearance, but love that thrives when both people are fully present, fully accountable, and fully respected. That is the way of the Stoic woman. That is the essence of love. Stoic. And it begins the moment you stop making him the priority, the cost of yourself, and start becoming your own six, avoiding boundaries to avoid conflict. Conflict feels uncomfortable. It triggers that deep, ancient part of us that's wired for connection and afraid of rejection. For many women, especially those raised to value harmony, kindness, and emotional availability, conflict feels like danger, like threat, like the beginning of the end. So when a man crosses a line, even just slightly, you hesitate, you freeze, you weigh your options, say something, and risk scaring him off or stay silent and hope it was just a one-time thing, almost without thinking. You choose silence, you smile through it, you tell yourself you're being chill, flexible, easy to be with you. Excuse it, he's tired, he's just stressed. He doesn't mean anything by it, but in doing. So you've made a quiet decision, not just about him, but about you. You've decided that your comfort is secondary, that your standards are negotiable, that keeping the peace is more important than protecting your self-respect. And once that pattern begins, it doesn't stop. One boundary left unspoken becomes two, then five. Then suddenly the entire relationship is built on your silence. And the cost of that silence is profound. Not just in how he treats you, but in how you see yourself. Because the longer you suppress your voice, the harder it becomes to access it. You begin to doubt whether your feelings are valid, whether your expectations are too high, whether you're asking for too much. And that doubt becomes a fog clouding your clarity, making it impossible to discern what's truly unacceptable from what you've simply adapted to. Stoicism teaches us the power of internal order, of governing our lives according to virtue, wisdom, and clarity, and boundaries are an essential part of that order. Without them, you become a leaf in the wind, blown about by other people's desires, moods, and behavior with them. You become an anchor, not just for yourself, but for the relationship. because contrary to what you may fear, setting boundaries doesn't push healthy men away. It draws them closer. It gives them structure. It gives them clarity. It lets them know who you are and what you expect. And the men who are emotionally mature, they crave that clarity. They respect it. They rise to meet it. But when you avoid boundaries to avoid conflict, you don't just lose power, you lose direction. The relationship becomes a series of reactions instead of a shared creation. You're no longer co-authoring the dynamic, you're managing it. Walking on eggshells, hoping that by not making waves, the boat won't rock. But here's the truth. The boat still rocks. The only difference is now you're pretending it's not happening while drowning quietly inside love. Stoic means you don't let fear make your decisions. It means you choose alignment over approval. It means you are willing to be misunderstood, even disliked, rather than betray yourself just to keep someone comfortable. Because boundaries are not weapons, they are mirrors. They are mirrors. Reveal the emotional maturity of the person in front of you. And when you say calmly and clearly, that didn't feel good, or I need more consistency, or I don't accept that kind of tone, you're not being dramatic, you're being honest. And if that honesty pushes someone away, good, that's data, that's truth, that's clarity. And clarity in Stoicism is freedom. Because when you know who someone is, in response to your truth, you stop wasting time trying to guess or fix or control. You simply observe, and that observation saves your energy. It saves your future. It saves you from building a life on unstable ground. Ask yourself, how many times have you swallowed your discomfort just to keep it light? How many times have you said it's fine when it wasn't? How many times have you brushed off something that felt disrespectful only to carry the weight of it silently for days? And what would it look like if you stopped doing that, if you paused and chose self-respect over avoidance, if you stopped fearing the consequences of setting a standard and started trusting that the right man would honor it? Because that's the real shift. The moment you stop fearing loss, you become free. The moment you decide that you'd rather be alone in integrity, partnered in self-betrayal, your energy changes. And when your energy changes, your standards change. And when your standards change, everything changes. You attract differently. You speak differently. You walk into every room, every conversation, every relationship, knowing that you are not available for disrespect in any form, not loud, not subtle, not disguised as humor or flakiness or indifference. You're not available for passivity. You're not available for inconsistency. You're not available for men who want intimacy but refuse accountability. That is Stoicism in practice. That is love Stoic embodied, not because you're hardened, but because you're awake. Not because you're awake, you're guarded, but because you're grounded. And yes, setting boundaries might lead to uncomfortable conversations. It might lead to moments where you feel unsure or even scared, but that fear will pass. The self-respect you gain from honoring your boundaries, that stays, that builds, that empowers you in every area of your life, not just in love, but in work, in friendship, in the way you carry yourself in the world. And when you become a woman who speaks up early, when the red flag is still just a flicker, not a fire, you stop burning, you stop breaking, you start building something real. And the man who's meant for you, he will not only respect your boundaries, he will be grateful for them, because they show him that you're not here to be liked. You're here to be known, not to perform, to connect, not to adjust endlessly to meet him in truth. And when two people meet in truth, the possibilities become endless. But it all starts with you with that moment. You say, no more shrinking, no more over-explaining, no more prioritizing his comfort over your clarity, no more hiding behind chill, when what you really need is consistency, presence, commitment, respect. You don't need to scream. You don't need to explain your worth. You just need to stop accepting less than what you know you deserve. And when you do, when you really do, the shift is immediate. You feel lighter, clearer, calmer, not because the relationship is perfect, but because you are no longer afraid of your own truth. And that kind of inner peace, it's magnetic. It's powerful. It's unforgettable. So if this resonated, if you know you've been the one avoiding boundaries just to avoid tension, and you're finally ready to live differently, to love without losing your self-respect, let this be your moment. Like this video and comment number 1 below, if you're claiming this new standard and if you want to stay on this journey of love, Stoic living, where power, presence, and deep connection all begin within you. Already know what to do. Subscribe now, because what's coming next will not only help you love stronger, it will help You live clearer, stay grounded, stay sovereign, and let the world adjust. It's easy to believe that love is something we earn by effort, that if we care enough, try enough, give enough, we'll be chosen, cherished, and protected. But what if love isn't something you earn by overextending, but something you build by standing still in your full worth and letting others rise to meet you? There. These 6 habits don't destroy your value because you are inherently lacking. They destroy your value in a man's eyes because they quietly tell him you don't recognize how valuable you are. Over-investing too soon, losing yourself in the name of closeness, tolerating disrespect, offering emotional access without reciprocity, prioritizing his needs at your own expense, avoiding boundaries to keep the peace. Each of these comes from a desire to connect, but they all end in disconnection, not because you're broken, but because the dynamic becomes unsustainable. Love cannot thrive when it's lopsided. Respect cannot grow where silence has taken root. Desire cannot deepen in a space where one person carries all the emotional weight. But the most powerful part of this truth is this: once you see it, you can change it. You don't need permission to reclaim your standards. You don't need anyone else to validate the discomfort you've been feeling. You just need to stop running from it. Face it, feel it, and choose something better, because the woman who lives by the love stoic way knows that love is not about sacrificing herself. It's about sharing herself. She knows that setting boundaries is not confrontation. It's clarity. She understands that emotional availability without discernment is not intimacy, it's exposure. She does not chase. She does not perform. She does not disappear inside of a relationship just to keep it alive. She chooses herself, not in a selfish way, but in a sacred one. Because when you choose yourself, you give others the opportunity to choose you too. Not for what you do, but for who you are. And in a world that constantly pressures you to be more give more to earn love. Choosing to hold your ground becomes the most radical form of self-respect. That's not cold. That's not distant. That's powerful. That's love stoic. That's the kind of energy that draws the right man in and keeps the wrong ones out. Not because you're playing games, but because you're done playing small now. You lead from a different place. You walk with a different posture. And the man who's meant for you will recognize that not as a challenge, but as an invitation, not to take from you, but to build with you. And from that place, love doesn't just survive, it expands, because it's no longer built on effort alone. It's built on alignment, presence, and truth, the kind that doesn't fade, the kind that respects your edges, much as it celebrates your softness, the kind that begins with you and radiates out. Stay rooted, stay clear, stay you always. 6 hidden things women do that trigger a man's lust. You've been told it's about the way you dress, the makeup, the hair, the flirting techniques you should memorize like a script. Society has trained you to think that a man's lust is something you earn by performing, perfecting, or posing. But what if that's not only false, it's actually holding you back? Let's get honest. If attraction were just about looking good, why do some women who seem so effortlessly natural, even understated, still haunt a man's mind, months, even years after they've met? Why do men feel a pull toward a woman who didn't even try to impress him while forgetting the one who followed all the so-called rules? Could it be that what triggers a man's deepest desire lives somewhere else entirely, in something softer, quieter, and much more powerful? In this video, I'm about to take you into a hidden world, one most women never even realize they're influencing. We're going beyond surface-level tactics and into the truth of what moves a man from mere attraction to unshakable longing. You'll learn 6 powerful, almost invisible things women do, not as a performance, but as an expression of authentic feminine energy that light up a man's desire from the inside out. And once you understand these forces, you won't need to chase attention. You'll command it. This isn't about manipulating men. It's not about playing games. This is love stoic, presence over performance, depth over decoration, embodiment over entertainment. This is about you, your energy, your movement, your stillness, and the way you hold emotional space that makes him feel both challenged and comforted at once. These are things you can begin to embody today without changing your personality or turning yourself into someone else. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real and being rooted in who you truly are. But before we dive in, ask yourself this: what if everything you've been taught about feminine power has only scratched the surface? What if the real magnetism lies in what you aren't saying and what you don't do, and in the subtle energy you carry when you're not trying to be noticed at all? We're about to shift how you see yourself and how you show up. What you're about to hear may sound simple, but don't be fooled. These quiet truths, when practiced with stoicism and soul, create a force that lingers in his mind longer than anything else. This is how lust becomes devotion. And the final point, number 6, is something so sacred, so rare, that when a man encounters it, it changes him. So stay until the end. Don't skip a moment, because the woman who understands these 6 truths isn't just desired. She's remembered, won the feminine gaze, quiet eyes that see him. What if the most powerful way to trigger a man's lust had nothing to do with your body, your voice, or your smile, but instead lived in your silence and your eyes when you simply observe him? We've grown up in a culture obsessed with spectacle, with noise, with visible effort. But in truth, the deepest masculine desire is often awakened not by what a woman does, but by what she embodies, especially in stillness. When a woman watches a man without the need to fix, critique, or impress him, but rather sees him with soft eyes, with genuine interest, without performance or expectation, she activates something primal, something older than civilization, something his modern life has nearly made him forget. The feminine gaze, pure, unforced, sincere, is one of the most underestimated powers a woman carries. It is neither passive nor aggressive. It doesn't seek to manipulate. It doesn't say, "Look at me," but rather, "I see you." And in a world that demands men prove themselves endlessly, that gaze becomes sanctuary. When a man is doing something simple, thinking, building, moving with purpose, and a woman witnesses him from a place of quiet admiration without commentary, she gives him a gift, the rare feeling of being enough exactly as he is. Not when he achieves more, not when he speaks the right words, but in that moment. He may not understand why it hits him so deeply. He may not even notice it fully in the moment, but it lands in his psyche like a seed, and it begins to grow. It tells him he is respected, that he is safe to simply be, that he is not being measured or evaluated. In a life full of pressure metrics and masks, this kind of gaze becomes unforgettable, and it does something more than arouse him. It centers him. Men hunger for this, even if they never speak of it. They are drawn not just to women who are beautiful, but to women who carry an inner stillness, an attentive awareness that doesn't demand, but simply allows. Have you ever noticed how a man lingers after a conversation where you made him feel seen, not for what he could offer, but for who he already was? That's not chemistry. That's resonance. That's memory. That's the power of feminine presence operating on a level beyond intellect, beyond strategy. In Stoicism, we speak often of not reacting, of observing, of maintaining inner calm. And when a woman embodies this in her gaze, it is felt immediately. She is not reactive. She is not grasping. She is witnessing. And in that still gaze, a man finds what he didn't know. He was searching for peace, recognition, reverence. She becomes the mirror of his potential. Not a critic, not a fan, but a calm witness to his strength. This is not about pretending. It only works when it's real. When the respect in your eyes is grounded in truth, when your stillness is born of self-possession, not passivity, when your attention is rooted in curiosity, not strategy. And here's what's remarkable. You don't have to do anything to develop this. You simply have to unlearn everything that told you you had to perform in order to be valuable. You return to presence. You return to wonder. You allow yourself to observe a man without rushing to fill the space. You stop performing and you start seeing. And in doing so, you become unforgettable. This is love stoic in action. It's not about seduction techniques. It's about embodied awareness. Men don't just crave admiration. They crave silent understanding. Have you ever felt the magnetic pull of someone who looked at you like they genuinely saw you, not your role, not your appearance, but your essence? That's what the feminine gaze offers to the masculine. It says, "You are enough." It whispers, "I trust your strength." It signals, "You can relax here." In that moment, his nervous system shifts. His posture may even change. His breathing slows. He begins to rise, not because he feels challenged, but because he feels chosen. And this doesn't have to be a dramatic moment. It can happen across a dinner table in the quiet of a car ride, while he's talking about something he cares about. Your eyes don't need to analyze or exaggerate. They simply need to be there. And in that stillness, a man remembers who he wants to be. He may not even realize why he's drawn to you, but it's because in your gaze, he finds something both ancient and rare, the silent invitation to become more of himself. And let's be clear, this is not about staring. It's not about trying to manufacture emotion. It's about soft attention, the kind of gaze that holds space without pressure, the kind that says, "I don't need anything from you in this moment. I'm just enjoying who you are." This is where the masculine begins to long not just for your body, but for your presence. Because presence like this is rare. It's sacred. It's grounding. And it doesn't shout. It hums. It hums beneath the noise of performance, beneath the layers of social masks, beneath the anxiety of modern dating dynamics. It is deeper technique. It's what Stoicism calls equanimity in action. The ability to hold space with calm without collapsing or controlling. Feminine equanimity expressed through a gaze is not empty. It's full of intention, full of quiet joy, full of respect. And that fullness transmits to the masculine like a signal. You are safe. You are respected. You are desired. Not for what you do, but for who you are. That's the invitation he cannot resist. Not because it manipulates, but because it resonates. And once a man has tasted that kind of gaze, that kind of presence, he begins to lose interest in the flashy, the loud, the superficial. He remembers the woman who looked at him with steady softness. He may not remember
what she wore. He may not recall her words, but he remembers how he felt in her presence.
And that feeling, being seen, not judged, becomes addictive. What's more, when you live from this space, you don't have to fake anything. The gaze becomes real because you are real. You don't have to force attraction. You don't have to engineer chemistry. You simply anchor into presence, into breath, into trust in your own value. And from there, you can look at a man not to win him, but to witness him. That is the energy that stirs devotion, not just lust. That's the moment where love stoic becomes a lived experience. You're not seeking attention. You're offering sanctuary. And men, whether they say it out loud or not, are longing for that, especially in a world that constantly demands they perform, achieve, and practice. Your gaze, when clean of agenda and full of admiration, is like oxygen to a soul starving for simplicity. It's what we remember when everything else fades. It's what brings us back to ourselves. And for the man who feels it, it's the beginning of a desire that doesn't just burn, it transforms to embodied movement, how she moves without trying. There's something ancient that stirs inside a man when he watches a woman who moves not for the gaze of others, but in rhythm with herself. It's not about choreography, posing, or being on. In fact, the more unconscious her movement is, the more magnetic she becomes. In today's culture, women are often taught to perform constantly, to curate every step, every turn, every gesture for maximum attention. But the truth is, the most captivating women are those who don't try to be captivating. They move with a softness that comes from within, from embodiment, not strategy. This is where desire begins, not in exaggerated gestures, but in the quiet grace of a woman who lives fully in her body. When she stretches her arms, runs fingers through her hair, adjusts her blouse with no awareness of being watched. Those micro movements bypass logic and go straight to the core of male attraction. Why? Because they're real. They're not calculated. They're signals of presence, and presence is rare. A woman who is fully in her body, who inhabits her body instead of performing with it, becomes impossible to ignore. Her walk has a grounded tempo, not rushed, not stiff. Her gestures aren't polished, they're sincere. And it's not about being seductive, it's about being alive. Men don't always know how to articulate this, but they feel it. They feel it in the curve of her back when she reaches for something on a high shelf. They feel it in the way she shifts her weight, the way she leans into a conversation, the subtle sway as she listens to music or adjusts her footing in a moment of thought. These things seem small, but they're enormous because they reveal something the masculine longs for. A woman not trying to be seen, but who cannot help but be noticed because she is so fully herself. This is where Stoicism enters the feminine, not as detachment, but as awareness. She is aware of the moment. She moves from feeling, not from pressure. She isn't reacting. She's simply being, and that beingness is electric. Think of how you feel when you see someone completely in their element, dancing not to perform but to feel, walking not to impress but to ground, stretching not to be watched but because her body asks for it. That's the kind of movement that catches a man off guard. That's the kind of feminine embodiment that stirs lust at a level he doesn't even understand. Because in that moment, she's not trying to be sexy. She is not, because she's wearing something revealing, but because she is fully surrendered to the now. And that surrender, when rooted in dignity, awakens him. It brings him back to his own physicality. Her movement reminds him that he has a body, a heart, a longing. It disarms him. He wants to touch her. Yes, but more than that, he wants to feel what she's feeling. Her motion becomes a mirror. Her authenticity becomes an invitation. And this is where desire becomes something more than visual. It becomes spiritual, because what she's offering is not perfection, but presence. And the masculine, tired of illusions and noise, aches for that presence. Men are not as visually shallow as they've been made out to be. Yes, they notice appearance, but what holds their attention is energy. Real feminine energy has rhythm, softness, and spontaneity. You cannot fake it. You cannot force it. You can only feel it. And let that feeling guide how you move, how you shift, how you live in your body. That's the real seduction. That's love stoic in action, not the performance of femininity, but the embodiment of it. And here's the key. You don't need to learn new moves. You need to unlearn the habit of controlling yourself. You need to stop editing your body in real time. You need to breathe again. You need to walk like you're not being watched. You need to reach like no one is judging you. That's when you become luminous. That's when your presence begins to echo. A man may not remember your lipstick, but he will remember the way your hair fell across your cheek as you looked down, the way your shoulder shifted when you laughed, the way you moved your hand across a table, like you were painting the air itself. These are not staged moments. They're real. They're what makes him feel like he witnessed something sacred. And he's right. Because when a woman is in flow, when she's present and grounded, her movement becomes a prayer, not for attention, for connection, for truth, for soul. This isn't about being watched. It's about being rooted. Stoicism teaches us to act from internal principle, not external applause. The same applies here. Don't move to attract, move to align. Don't pose, just pause and let that stillness give birth to honest motion. The feminine doesn't need to perform to be powerful. It simply needs to return to the body. That return creates the kind of magnetism men can't explain, but can never forget. Have you ever walked into a room and without saying a word, felt every eye turn to you, not because of your outfit, but because of your presence? That's not coincidence. That's embodiment. That's rhythm. That's depth. And once you taste what it feels like to move from your core instead of from social expectation, you'll never go back. You'll move for you. And ironically, that's when they start to move toward you. It's not about being flashy. It's about being felt. And the woman who has felt more than she has seen becomes unforgettable. Not just desirable, sacred, desired not for her shape, but for her soul, made visible through her movement. This is the edge where body meets mystery, where instinct meets reverence, where sex meets soul. And the man who feels that will find himself thinking about you long after you've left the room. Not because you posed, but because you didn't, because you were fully in the moment, and the moment remembered. The body is not meant to be rigid. The feminine is not meant to be confined. When you move with trust, with awareness, with surrender, you become irresistible. Not just visually, but viscerally. He won't be able to explain it. He won't be able to stop thinking about it because you weren't just moving, you were being. That's the kind of woman that doesn't need to speak loudly. Her walk speaks, her stillness speaks, her gestures speak, and every word is grounded in authenticity. This is where stoicism and femininity meet, not in suppression, but in sovereignty. And that sovereignty, when felt through movement, becomes the kind of fire that ignites everything. So take this as your permission slip. Let yourself move, not for him, for you. And watch what happens, watch what wakes up, watch what follows you. Not just eyes, but energy. And if this resonates with you, if you've ever felt the power of movement without performance, then you know the truth already. The most seductive thing about a woman isn't what she wears. It's how she moves when she thinks no one is watching. If this video is hitting home, if this awakens something in you, like and comment number 1 below. So I know you're part of this journey. And make sure you subscribe because we're going deeper, much deeper. And trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next. 3, emotional tone. The voice that melts his guard. There is a moment often unnoticed by others, but unforgettable to a man when a woman speaks from her emotional center. Not from fear, not from control, not from seduction, but from presence. And her voice becomes something entirely different. Not louder, not sexier, just real. And that reality cuts through everything. It's not about pitch or performance. It's not a whisper. It's not a purr. It's not an act. It's a tone, a frequency, a vibration that resonates with the part of him that is always listening beneath the noise of the world. Because men, whether they admit it or not, are surrounded by pretense. They're trained to perform. They hear words all day long, commands, criticisms, expectations, but rarely do they feel a voice. Rarely do they encounter a woman who isn't speaking from her mask, but from her truth. And when they do, it stops them, not because they understand it, but because something in their nervous system does. The masculine doesn't want to be impressed. He wants to be impacted. And a woman's voice, when anchored in her emotion, when she lets her breath carry the truth of what she's saying, becomes a force of nature. It disarms him not through weakness, but through honesty. It signals trust. It signals softness without submission. And that kind of softness, that kind of raw tonal depth activates something buried deep in his core. The ancient desire to be the space where a woman feels safe enough to simply be. When you speak from that space, you don't have to try to sound feminine. You already are, and the difference is felt immediately. Your pauses hold weight. Your laughter carries soul. Your softness isn't artificial, it's powerful. It's not sugar-coated. It's grounded. And that grounding calls him in not to dominate, but to match, to meet you in presence, to enter a space where he is no longer a warrior, no longer a competitor, but simply a man. Whole, aware, steady. And this is why your voice, when emotionally real, becomes unforgettable. Not for what you say, but for how you say it. Men remember the woman who made them feel, even if her words were simple. He may not recall your exact sentence, but he'll remember the way it hit him, the way it landed, the way it silenced his mind and awakened his attention. This is the intersection of stoicism and love, a kind of spiritual pause in the chaos of daily life. Because a woman who speaks from her truth is not trying to dominate the room. She's not trying to charm. She's not defending herself. She's simply expressing from her body, from her breath, from her lived experience. That vulnerability, when rooted in strength, is magnetic. It doesn't ask for validation. It offers connection. And that offering creates a space where the masculine relaxes. It's subtle. Yes, but that subtlety is everything. You may think men are drawn to loud voices, confident performers, or commanding personalities. But when they go home, when they are alone, when they're reflecting on the women who impacted them most, it's almost always the one whose voice made them feel safe to listen, safe to open, safe to soften. That kind of voice doesn't need to yell. It resonates because it is true. It's not filtered by anxiety. It's not chasing perfection. It's not trying to compete. It's felt. And once a man has felt that voice, he knows the difference. The world is full of noise, but she was music. The world is full of reaction, but she was response. The world is full of show, but she was soul. And that contrast lingers. This is not about performing emotion. Stoicism teaches us to master emotion, not suppress it. Mastery doesn't mean silence. It means knowing when, how, and why we express. And when a woman speaks from a place of still emotional clarity, she carries a gravity that pulls people into presence, especially men, especially those who spend their days bracing themselves against the chaos of life. Your voice, when free of manipulation, becomes a kind of invitation. You're not saying, look at me. You're saying, here I am. And here I am is one of the most courageous things a woman can ever say without saying it. When a man hears it, not with his ears, but with his chest, with his breath, with his soul, he wakes up, he tunes in, he remembers. Have you ever spoken from your heart and watched a man's shoulders drop, his face soften, his gaze change? That's not performance, that's presence. That's feminine energy moving through sound. And it moves mountains, because while physical attraction may light the match, it's emotional resonance that keeps the fire burning. A man won't stay for a woman who performs, but he'll be haunted by the one who felt, who allowed a little bit of her truth to come through. Unfiltered, uncoded, unstaged, the woman who didn't need to raise her voice to be heard. The woman who didn't need to force sweetness to be soft. The woman who didn't need to force sweetness to be soft. The woman whose voice was steady, open, and anchored in who she really is. That's the voice that reaches him, not because it's practiced, but because it's real. And reality is rare. So rare that when he hears it, he can't unhear it. And here's the paradox. When you stop trying to sound desirable, you become unforgettable, because you are no longer speaking from fear. You are no longer seeking permission. You are no longer trying to pass a test you never agreed to take. You are simply speaking as you are fully here, fully now. And men, whether stoic or not, recognize truth. They may not say it, but they feel it. And once they do, they don't go back. They don't crave noise. They crave that tone that says, you can rest here. That tone that says, I'm not here to win. I'm here to connect. That tone that says, I'm not afraid to be seen. And in that courage and that surrender, you don't just seduce him. You inspire him. You call him into his higher self. You show him what calm power feels like. And that is something no man forgets. This is the real work of love. Stoic, not seduction, but sacred resonance. You don't need to raise your volume. You need to raise your presence. And when your voice comes from that place, it will echo in him long after you've stopped speaking. 4, playful challenge, flirtation with an edge. There's a kind of electricity that moves between a man and a woman. Not when they agree, not when she tries to please, but when she meets him with a calm, knowing spark of resistance. Not hostility, not sarcasm, but playful feminine challenge. The kind that says, I see your strength and I'm not afraid of it. This is not about being combative. It's not about testing him to feel superior. It's about being fully alive in your feminine curiosity and confidence, and inviting him to meet you there, not by pushing, but by dancing, That dance is ancient, it's instinctual, and it's one of the fastest ways to ignite a man's attention, not just for your body, but for your energy. When a woman knows how to flirt with subtle defiance, when she knows how to say, really, that's your best line, with a smile that melts away tension and invites deeper connection. She's not pushing him away. She's pulling him in. Because men don't crave passivity. They crave polarity. They crave energy that responds not to flatter, not to compete, but to reflect their own fire. A woman who can hold her ground without losing her warmth becomes unforgettable, not because she plays games, but because she plays with presence. This is the art of flirtation in its highest form. Not manipulation, not tactics, but emotional agility. It's the woman who raises an eyebrow when he tries to impress her. The woman who smirks at his confidence without needing to match it with bravado. The one who responds with a comment so casually sharp that it stops him in his tracks, not because she wants to hurt him, but because she enjoys the game. And that enjoyment, when genuine, awakens him. It calls out the part of him that wants to rise, not to dominate, but to engage. This is where stoicism serves her, not in becoming cold, but in remaining anchored. She doesn't get pulled into drama. She doesn't overreact. She holds her line, but she does so with music in her voice and mischief in her eyes. That edge doesn't come from insecurity, it comes from wholeness. She doesn't need to prove she's independent. She already knows it. And that knowing gives her permission to play, to tease, to challenge. And that challenge becomes the spark that lights a much bigger fire. Because when a man feels that you're not afraid of his strength, when he senses that you actually enjoy it, dance with it, push back against it without defensiveness, he stops trying to impress you and starts trying to match you. He becomes more alert, more curious, more drawn to you, not just as a physical being, but as a force. He can't relax into autopilot. He has to show up. He has to be present. And this is where attraction becomes alchemy, because you're not playing to win. You're playing to feel. And feeling in its most alive form is magnetic. It's not just laughter. It's the tension before the laughter. It's not just challenge. It's the surrender behind the challenge. It's not just a joke. It's the truth hidden inside it. Men remember the woman who didn't just smile politely at their stories, but pushed back, leaned in, gave them something to respond to. They remember the woman who didn't need to dominate the conversation, but knew exactly when to strike with a perfectly timed remark that made them question, lean forward, and crave more. That kind of interaction isn't common because most people are afraid to dance at that edge. They're afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of being too much. But when you learn how to do it from love, not fear, you change the entire atmosphere between you. Your words become invitation. Your glances become challenges. Your pauses become mysteries. And mystery, when wrapped in warmth, becomes desire. Think of the times you've seen a man come alive. Not when you gave him compliments, but when you gave him a look he couldn't interpret, when you said something he didn't expect, when you let him wonder whether you were serious or just playing. That's the seed of obsession. That's the origin of the slow burn. Because men, especially masculine men, don't fall for the easy. They fall for the unforgettable. And the unforgettable woman is the one who knows how to challenge him without wounding him, the one who can flirt without fear, the one who can tease without cruelty. The one who can say, I'm not impressed yet, and then walk away without explaining herself. That restraint, when done from strength, creates mystery. And mystery creates motion. It pulls him in. And once he's pulled in, he doesn't just want your attention. He wants your respect. He wants to earn it. Not out of insecurity, but out of admiration. This is not about games. This is love, stoic in motion. Lightness wrapped in intensity. Openness held with boundary. Fun that is rooted in emotional maturity. That's what flips the switch in his brain. That's what makes him say, who is this woman? Not because you did anything outrageous, but because you refused to dim your light. Didn't perform to please you. Responded to play. And in doing so, you opened the door to connection that doesn't just spark, it burns. Long after the conversation ends, he'll replay your words. He'll try to figure out what you meant. He'll want to circle back, not for closure, but for more of the energy you created. This is what most women aren't taught. That flirtation at its highest form is not fake, it's not surface, it's not manipulation, it's an emotional dance. And when you learn to dance well, you stop wondering whether he likes you. You know he feels you. And that feeling becomes the hook that brings him back, not to win, but to connect, to explore, to rise. So if this part of the video speaks to something deep inside you, if you recognize this dance or want to master it more fully, like in comment number 1 below to let me know it's landing. And don't forget to subscribe, because we're not done. The next truth is the one that speaks to his skin, to his soul, and to something even deeper than that. You don't want to miss what's next. 5 intentional touch. Gentle contact that says everything. In a world oversaturated with visual stimulation, overstated sexuality, and exaggerated attempts to gain attention, there remains one force that pierces through it all. Touch, but not the kind of touch that screams for acknowledgement or demands. Reciprocation, not the grasping, performative, needy kind that is meant to seduce or provoke. What awakens a man's deepest desire is the exact opposite. Touch that is intentional, light, and seemingly casual, yet so grounded in presence that it electrifies him without warning. This is not about groping, grabbing, or flaunting. This is about connection. This is about how a woman, anchored in her body and calm in her energy, uses her hands, her fingertips, her physical nearness, not as a weapon of manipulation, but as a whisper of sincerity. And that whisper bypasses his mind. It enters his body before he has time to analyze it. A hand resting on his chest when making a point, fingers brushing his arm as she laughs, a brief yet thoughtful squeeze on the shoulder in a moment of warmth. These small, seemingly insignificant gestures trigger something deeply instinctual in a man. The longing to be touched without being required to perform. The hunger for affection that doesn't come with expectation. The craving for intimacy that feels safe, unforced, and present. Most men are not starving for sex. They are starving for softness, for touch that invites rather than demands, for the kind of connection that allows their nervous system to exhale. And that kind of touch, when it comes from a woman who is emotionally attuned, self-aware, and rooted in her feminine presence, can leave a mark more lasting than any grand romantic gesture. Stoicism teaches restraint, control, self-possession. But what many misunderstand is that Stoic living doesn't mean living cold or distant. It means choosing wisely when and how to act. Feminine Stoicism, when expressed through physical presence, becomes a force of subtle emotional clarity. And when she chooses to touch not out of compulsion or desperation, but from full awareness, her hand becomes a message, not a cry for attention, not a trick, a message. A man will forget countless compliments. He will forget posed photos and memorized words, but he will remember the moment your fingers grazed his hand and lingered just a second longer than they needed to. He will remember the warmth in your palm when you rested it gently on his back while walking side by side. He will recall the stillness of the moment when you sat beside him, knees touching without flinching, without apology, because those moments don't speak to his ego. They speak to his core. They don't ask, do you like me? They say, I'm here with you. And in a world where men are often reduced to their usefulness, where affection is often transactional, this kind of touch becomes sacred. It becomes proof that softness still exists. It reminds him that intimacy is not earned through effort. It can be offered freely, simply, and with depth. But here is the paradox. This kind of touch only has power when it is uncalculated. It must not be used as a technique. It must not be rehearsed. It must not be given with the hidden motive of return. It must come from truth, from trust in oneself, from the belief that your presence is a gift and your physical expression is an extension of your inner state. This is why women who have
mastered love, Stoic energy, don't force touch. They allow it. They become intentional with their space. They move deliberately. They don't offer their bodies as a means to gain favor. They share presence with a quality of grace that is deeply sensual, but never desperate. And this kind of sensuality is rare, which is why it is unforgettable. A woman
doesn't have to say a word when her body is in integrity. She doesn't have to perform when her presence speaks louder than any script. A simple, thoughtful gesture, a touch that says, I see you, without needing anything back, becomes the echo in a man's soul long after the moment ends. It becomes a marker, a memory, a moment of clarity in the noise of his day. She didn't touch him to gain power. She touched him because her body in that moment said, you're safe with me. And for a man who lives most of his life in some form of emotional armor, that kind of experience is disarming in the best way. It melts him, not because he's weak, but because her touch speaks to a part of him that is rarely acknowledged, let alone celebrated. And this is what most women aren't taught, that the body is not a tool. It's a temple. And when you treat it as such, when you move from it, speak from it, and connect through it with reverence and grace, every gesture becomes meaningful. Every brush of your fingers becomes a poem. Every pause becomes an invitation. You are not doing touch. You are being in touch. That is the difference between lust that burns out and desire that endures. One is hungry. The other is whole. One is chasing. The other is inviting. And that invitation, when made from a place of feminine groundedness, calls out something ancient in the masculine. It reminds him that it is okay to feel. It tells him that not all touch is conditional, that not every moment must be transactional, that sometimes presence is enough, and once he feels that he doesn't forget it, he doesn't want to go back to performance. He wants more of that energy. Not because it entertains him, but because it awakens him, because it speaks to the part of him that wants to be a protector, a witness, a steady presence in the life of a woman who doesn't need him, but chooses him. And that choice made visible through touch becomes the moment everything changes. He no longer just wants you, he respects you. He begins to see touch not as a game, but as a language, and he starts learning it slowly, willingly, because the feminine that moves with grace, that speaks through presence and that touches with reverence, she becomes not just a lover, but a lighthouse. And the man who sees that light doesn't just move toward it for a night. He orients himself by it. He recalibrates around it. And not because she asked him to, but because her energy said, this is what real connection feels like. That is the heart of stoicism and attraction. Not loud, not forced, quiet, present, resonant. And in the end, it's not the words you said, the outfit you wore, or even the story you shared that he remembers most. It's that one moment when you placed your hand on his arm or let your fingers graze his, and he felt something real, something that bypassed his defenses and made him wonder, what was that? That is the beginning of longing. That is the birth of emotional memory. And that memory becomes the energy he chases. Not because you pushed it on him, but because you let him feel it. That is the beauty of feminine touch when expressed with intention. It is not theatrical, it is elemental. And in a world desperate for something real, it is everything. Sacred mystery, the power of holding something back. There's a kind of woman who enters a man's life and never fully leaves, not because she gave him everything, but because she didn't. Not because she exposed every part of herself, but because she allowed him to see just enough to wonder what remained. That woman isn't trying to be chased. She's not withholding out of fear or control. She's simply rooted in the knowledge that her soul isn't something to be handed out carelessly, that her emotional world, her thoughts, her story, her vulnerability, it's sacred. And sacred things are revealed slowly, with care, with timing, with intuition. Mystery isn't a strategy, it's a truth. It's the natural byproduct of depth. When a woman holds herself with quiet dignity and doesn't rush to fill silence with explanation or connection with disclosure, she creates space, and that space becomes fertile. It becomes electric. A man feels it not just in his thoughts, but in his imagination. Because what the masculine mind cannot fully grasp, it cannot stop chasing. And that chase, when born from reverence rather than control, becomes devotion. But here's what most don't understand. Mystery is not about hiding, it's about discernment. It's not about silence, it's about resonance. A woman who lives from love, stoic energy knows that her emotional life is powerful. She doesn't open it to everyone. She doesn't offer her past like a resume. She doesn't explain every glance, every pause, every feeling. And that's not cold, it's captivating. Because when a man encounters a woman who is emotionally wise enough to not reveal it all at once, he doesn't feel manipulated. He feels honored because she is treating her presence like a flame, not a wildfire that burns uncontrolled, but a hearth fire that warms when approached with respect. And he wants to be near that warmth, not because he thinks he's entitled to it, but because he knows it's real. In Stoicism, the idea of withholding emotion is often misread. But the truth is, Stoicism doesn't suppress feeling. It shapes it. It gives it form. And when a woman shapes her emotional presence like an artist, showing strokes of color here, keeping shades in shadow there, she becomes more than interesting. She becomes unforgettable, because men, even those who chase thrills and fast pleasures, never forget the woman whose silence made them wonder, whose eyes held stories they never got to hear, whose voice hinted at oceans beneath her calm. That depth, when revealed slowly and selectively, ignites a kind of desire that is less about conquest and more about communion. It's not just physical, it's spiritual, emotional, psychological, and it lasts. Think about it. How many women rush to explain themselves, to be liked, to be understood, to secure safety by making themselves smaller, simpler, easier to grasp? But the feminine is not meant to be simple. It is meant to be full of layers, curves, seasons, stillness, and fire. And a man who is ready, truly ready, doesn't want immediate access to everything. He wants to earn the next layer. He wants to feel that with every moment you choose to share, it means something, that you're not opening just because someone asked, but because you felt it was the right moment to reveal. And when that moment comes, it becomes unforgettable. Because he feels it, not just in your words, but in the energy behind them. You didn't spill, you offered, you didn't rush, you revealed. And that choice, the pacing, that sacred pause, It creates gravity, and emotional gravity pulls him in with more force than physical beauty ever could. This is the essence of sacred feminine power. To know that you don't need to be known fully, to be felt deeply, that your presence, your gaze, your stillness, your slow unfolding is enough, that you don't need to impress. You only need to be. And when you hold that space, you awaken something timeless in the masculine. He begins to question not just what he knows about you, but what he knows about himself. He starts to rise not to win you, but to be worthy of the next part of you. And in that process, something extraordinary happens. He changes because you didn't force him. You didn't try to control the outcome. You didn't reveal yourself in desperation. You let the mystery do its work, and that work is sacred. That's why the woman who holds something back, not from fear, but from wisdom, is the one who haunts his dreams. She's not a puzzle to solve. She's a flame to sit beside a feeling he can't fully describe, a presence that lingers long after the moment ends. And no, it's not about being unavailable. It's about being emotionally rare. It's about letting your mystery unfold over time, not out of strategy, but out of truth. You know, that real intimacy isn't built on disclosure alone. It's built on timing, on trust, on the quiet question that lives between you and him. Are you ready for this next part of me? And when you let him earn that yes, not by playing games, but by honoring your own depth, he doesn't just crave you. He respects you. He honors you because your mystery didn't push him away. It called him forward. That's the power of a woman who doesn't spill her soul to be liked, who doesn't chase validation through openness, who doesn't give everything away in the first hour just to feel chosen. She knows her worth. She knows that the right man won't need to see all of her at once to feel her. He'll feel her presence. He'll respect her stillness. He'll listen not just to her words, but to her pauses. He'll stay not because she made it easy, but because she made it real. That's the kind of woman men don't forget. That's the kind of woman whose name they may not even remember, but whose energy stays with them, shaping what they look for next. That's the kind of woman who doesn't dim her mystery for the sake of clarity. She lets the unknown do what it does, best pull him in. And if you've ever been that woman or want to be, know this. You don't have to chase. You don't have to explain. You don't have to reveal more than you want to. You just have to trust your own depth, live from your own center, and let the mystery carry its own gravity. That's what Stoicism teaches us. Truth doesn't need to shout. Stillness doesn't need to justify itself, and love, when grounded in presence, doesn't need to rush. So if this truth resonates with you, if you feel something stirring in your heart or your memory right now, like and comment number 1 below to let me know. You're walking this path too. And don't forget to subscribe because there's more coming. Not louder, just deeper. So what do you do with all of this? This gaze, this movement, this voice, this playful edge, this sacred touch, this holy mystery? You don't turn it into a performance. You don't turn it into a checklist. You live it. You allow it to become the quiet structure of your presence. Because what you've heard here isn't about tricks, techniques, or seduction tactics that wear out over time. It's about embodiment. It's about becoming a woman who no longer asks, how do I make him want me? But instead asks, am I showing up in the most honest, grounded, feminine version of myself? And when you do that, when you choose emotional awareness over manipulation, when you move from curiosity instead of control, when you hold your own energy with reverence, desire becomes a side effect, respect becomes inevitable, connection becomes sacred. The world doesn't teach this. The world teaches women to push harder, show more skin, give more access, speak louder, explain faster, and chase validation as if it's the only currency worth holding. But you now know something different. You know that the most magnetic energy is not the loudest, it's the most grounded. You know that presence doesn't need a spotlight to be felt. You know that true feminine power lives in the ability to remain open without losing self, to extend warmth, without losing clarity, to invite connection, without abandoning mystery. The women who are remembered are not remembered because they followed rules. They're remembered because they broke patterns. They didn't shrink. They didn't spill. They didn't shout. They stood in their softness. They stood in their depth. They stood in the kind of love that doesn't scream for attention. It commands it through integrity, and men feel that they may not articulate it. They may not even fully understand it, but they feel it. It moves them. It holds them. It haunts them in the most beautiful way. Because woman who carries herself like this, a woman who lives love stoic without trying to prove anything, is unforgettable. She's not always the one who wins the room. She's the one who changes it. Her silence makes people listen. Her energy shifts the atmosphere. Her presence lingers long after she's gone. She doesn't try to fit in. She belongs to herself. She doesn't try to be feminine. She is, because she's returned to what real femininity is: quiet strength, emotional intelligence, unapologetic presence, and sacred discernment. That is the legacy of this kind of woman. She's not remembered for what she wore. She's remembered for how she made people feel. And the man who encounters her doesn't walk away the same, not because she gave him everything, but because she showed him something rare. A glimpse of the kind of woman who doesn't perform, doesn't demand, doesn't chase. She is, and being in her presence is enough. She becomes a mirror to his best self. She becomes the breath in his noise. She becomes the rhythm he didn't know he needed. So if you followed this journey to the end, let this be your turning point, not into someone new, but into more of who you've always been. Peel back the layers of performance. Release the pressure to always know what to say or do. Trust that your energy, when honest and anchored, already speaks volumes. And when you live from that place, desire follows devotion, follows, and most importantly, peace follows. Not because you chased it, but because you became the kind of woman who draws it in simply by being. That is the quiet revolution of presence. That is the feminine in her highest form. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where a guy is giving you mixed signals? One day he's all over you, and the next he vanishes like he's got a secret superhero identity. Let me tell you something. Men aren't that complicated. When they want you, it's obvious. You just have to know what to listen for. Today, I'm going to share 6 phrases that men say when they're genuinely interested. No mind games, no second guessing, just straight up truth. When a man says, "I've never met anyone like you before," it's more than just a compliment. It's a statement that carries weight. It means you've made an impression on him in a way that others haven't. People don't say things like this casually unless they truly feel it. It's a phrase that signals admiration, intrigue, and a level of emotional connection that stands out from the ordinary. But what exactly does this mean, and how should you interpret it? First, it's important to understand the significance of this phrase in the context of human attraction and relationships. People are naturally drawn to uniqueness. Whether it's in friendships, professional settings, or romantic relationships, we remember those who make us feel something different, something special. When a man expresses that he's never met anyone like you, he's acknowledging that you bring a certain energy, presence, or quality that sets you apart. Maybe it's the way you speak, the confidence you carry, the kindness you show, or the way you challenge his thoughts in a way that others don't. Whatever it is, it's something he can't ignore. Men, like anyone else, are wired to recognize patterns. They meet different people, interact in various social circles, and engage in conversations all the time. So when someone disrupts that pattern and stands out, it creates a memorable impact. If a man has met many people before and yet feels compelled to tell you that you are different, that's a signal of emotional significance. It means he's paying attention, not just in a surface level way. He sees something in you that goes beyond the usual encounters he has with others. This phrase can also be a reflection of deep emotional attraction. Physical attraction is often immediate, but emotional attraction takes time to build. When a man feels emotionally drawn to someone, it's usually because of their personality, energy, or the way they make him feel. He may admire your confidence, your authenticity, your intelligence, or even your quirks that others might overlook. It's not just about looks or charm. It's about the way you make him think, the way you make him feel comfortable being himself, or the way you challenge him to grow. However, while this phrase is powerful, it's important to observe whether his actions align with his words. Words can be persuasive, but real attraction is demonstrated through consistent effort, respect, and attention. If a man truly believes that he's never met anyone like you before, his behavior should reflect that. He should make an effort to spend time with you, prioritize you, and treat you with genuine interest and care. If he says this phrase, but doesn't follow through with actions that back it up, then it may be a case of flattery rather than sincere admiration. It's also essential to recognize how this phrase should make you feel. When someone acknowledges your uniqueness, it should be a reminder of your value, not a reason to seek validation. You don't need someone to tell you that you're different to believe that you are. Your uniqueness exists whether or not someone else points it out. The key is to recognize your own worth first. So when a man says this to you, it serves as confirmation rather than the foundation of your self-esteem. Many people, especially women, have a habit of downplaying compliments like these. They might respond with something like, "Oh, you probably say that to everyone," or "You just haven't met enough people." While these responses might seem lighthearted, they can sometimes come from a place of disbelief or insecurity. Instead of dismissing the compliment, own it. Accept that you are unique, that you bring something special to the table, and that you deserve to be recognized for it. A simple "thank you, I appreciate that" is a powerful response that acknowledges both his words and your own self-worth. On the flip side, it's also valuable to assess whether this phrase is being used with genuine intent or as a manipulative tactic. Some men use flattery to create a false sense of connection, especially early on in dating. If someone you just met is already saying things like this without having truly gotten to know you, it might be a sign that they are using charm rather than authenticity. True admiration takes time to develop. If a man has spent time understanding your personality, values, and depth, then this phrase holds more meaning. But if it's thrown out casually within minutes of meeting you, it may not be as sincere as it seems. A great way to determine the depth behind these words is by asking yourself, what is he seeing in me that makes him say this? Is it my kindness, my intelligence, my humor, my confidence? When you can identify what makes you unique in his eyes, it helps you understand the foundation of the connection. If the admiration is based on qualities that truly reflect who you are, then the statement carries weight. If it feels vague or overly generic, then it may be just a line rather than a genuine sentiment. Beyond relationships, this phrase is also a reminder of the power of being yourself. The reason someone feels like they've never met anyone like you before is because you are embracing your true self. When you show up as your authentic self, without trying to fit into a mold or be what someone else expects, you naturally attract people who appreciate you for who you are. Trying to be like everyone else will never make you stand out, but being unapologetically yourself will. There's a lesson in this phrase that extends beyond dating and relationships. It's about how we carry ourselves in life, whether in friendships, careers, or any social setting. The way to leave an impact is by fully stepping into who you are. People are drawn to those who exude confidence, kindness, and authenticity. That's what makes someone memorable. That's what makes someone say, "I've never met anyone like you before." When a man says, "I want to know everything about you," it's a powerful statement that signals deep interest and emotional connection. It means he is not just attracted to you on a surface level. He wants to understand you, your thoughts, your experiences, and what makes you who you are. This phrase is more than casual curiosity. It is an invitation for you to open up, share your world, and let him in. When someone genuinely wants to know everything about you, it reflects a desire for emotional intimacy, a connection that goes beyond fleeting attraction. Men, like everyone else, invest their time and attention into things that matter to them. If a man is asking questions, listening attentively, and showing a real interest in your life, it's a strong sign that he values you. People don't make an effort to learn about someone unless they see potential in them, whether as a romantic partner, a close friend, or someone they deeply admire. This is why it's important to recognize the sincerity behind these words. Is he asking thoughtful questions? Does he remember the little details you share? Does he follow up on things you mentioned in past conversations? These are indicators that his interest is genuine and not just something he's saying to sound charming. When a man expresses a desire to know everything about you, he is essentially saying, "I want to understand what makes you unique." This means he is looking beyond just your appearance or how you present yourself externally. He wants to dive deeper into your personality, your passions, your fears, and your dreams. He is interested in your past, what experiences shaped you into the person you are today. He is curious about your present, what excites you, what challenges you, and what keeps you motivated. And he is thinking about your future, where you see yourself, what your aspirations are, and what kind of life you want to build. This kind of interest is rare because most people engage in small talk rather than meaningful conversations. In a world where people are often distracted by their phones, busy schedules, and fleeting attention spans, finding someone who truly listens and wants to understand you is special. A man who wants to know everything about you will not just nod along while you speak, he will engage with you. He will ask follow-up questions, share his thoughts, and create a space where you feel safe to express yourself without judgment. One of the most beautiful aspects of a connection like this is that it allows for vulnerability. When someone wants to know everything about you, it means they are willing to see not just the best parts of you, but also the parts you might be hesitant to share. Your insecurities, your past mistakes, the things you struggle with. These are all pieces of your story that contribute to who you are. A man who is truly invested in you will not shy away from these parts. Instead, he will want to understand them because they matter to you. However, it's also important to recognize whether a man's words align with his actions. Some people use phrases like this as a way to create an illusion of closeness without actually putting in the effort. If someone says they want to know everything about you but never remembers what you tell them or only asks surface-level questions, then it's likely that their interest is not as deep as they claim. Real connection is built through consistency, active listening, and a genuine desire to understand one another. If a man truly wants to know everything about you, he will make the effort to learn, remember, and appreciate the details that make you who you are. Another important factor to consider is how you respond to this kind of interest. Many people, especially those who have been hurt in the past, may feel hesitant to open up. They might wonder if they are being too vulnerable too soon, or if sharing too much will push someone away. It's completely natural to feel this way. But it's also important to recognize that real connection requires honesty. If a man is making an effort to know you and you feel comfortable with him, allowing yourself to be open can strengthen the bond between you. Trust is built when both people feel seen and heard, and that can only happen when there is a willingness to share and receive each other's truths. When someone wants to know everything about you, it also means they are invested in your happiness. They want to understand what makes you smile, what your passions are, and what brings you joy. A man who truly cares will pay attention to the little things: your favorite music, the way you take your coffee, the stories that light up your face when you tell them. These details may seem small, but they are what create intimacy. They show that he is not just listening to respond, but listening to understand. This phrase can also be a sign of emotional maturity. A man who expresses a desire to know everything about you is someone who values depth in relation. He's not just looking for surface-level attraction, he wants a meaningful connection. This is the kind of person who enjoys deep conversations, who wants to learn about your values, your mindset, and the way you see the world. It's a reflection of emotional investment, and when you encounter someone like this, it's worth paying attention to. It's also important to consider the balance in the relationship. A healthy dynamic involves both people taking an interest in each other's lives. If a man wants to know everything about you but never shares anything about himself, it might indicate an imbalance. A strong connection is built on mutual openness. Just as he wants to learn about you, you should also feel encouraged to learn about him. A relationship where both people are equally invested in understanding each other creates a foundation for long-term trust and compatibility. In any relationship, feeling seen and valued is one of the most fulfilling experiences. When a man says he wants to know everything about you and his actions support that statement, it's a sign that he truly appreciates who you are. Real love and connection are built on understanding, patience, and a willingness to explore each other's worlds. When someone takes the time to know you deeply, it's not just about curiosity, it's about creating something meaningful. When a man says, "When can I see you again?" it's one of the clearest indicators that he is genuinely interested. Unlike vague or non-committal phrases that leave you wondering where you stand, this question is direct. It means he is thinking ahead, planning for the next time he can be with you, and making it clear that he wants to keep the connection going. This is an important distinction, because men who are unsure, half-hearted, or not serious tend to avoid making future plans. They might say things like, "Let's see where things go," or "We should hang out sometime," without actually setting a date. But when a man is truly invested, he will make the effort to secure the next opportunity to be with you. One of the biggest challenges people face in dating is trying to decipher someone's true intentions, mixed signals, hot and cold behavior, and unclear communication often lead to frustration and wasted time. That's why this phrase is so powerful. It eliminates the guessing game. If a man is asking when he can see you again, he is showing initiative, which is a key trait of someone who values your presence. He is not waiting around for you to reach out first or leaving things uncertain. Instead, he is taking an active role in keeping the connection alive. This phrase also reveals a lot about how a man prioritizes you. In today's fast-paced world, people are busy with work, social commitments, and personal responsibilities. If a man is serious about you, he will carve out time, no matter how hectic his schedule may be. He will make an effort to ensure that spending time with you is not just an afterthought, but a priority. Actions always speak louder than words, and a man who actively tries to schedule time with you is demonstrating that you matter to him. There's also an emotional component to this phrase that shouldn't be overlooked. When a man asks when he can see you again, it means that your presence left an impression on him. He enjoyed his time with you enough to want more of it. People don't seek out what they don't value, and they don't plan for things they don't care about. This is why it's important to pay attention to not just what a man says, but how he follows through. If he asks when he can see you again, but never actually makes solid plans, then the words lose their meaning. But if he asks and then follows up with a specific time, place, or activity, that's a sign of genuine interest and effort. Many women are conditioned to overanalyze and make excuses for men who don't step up. If he's not asking to see you again, it's easy to fall into the trap of rationalizing his behavior. Maybe he's just busy. Maybe he's afraid of coming on too strong. Maybe he's waiting for me to make the first move. The reality is, when a man is interested, he won't leave room for doubt. He won't risk losing the opportunity to be with you because he understands that if he doesn't act, someone else will. Another important aspect to consider is consistency. A man who is serious about you will not just ask to see you again once or twice. He will do so consistently. If he only asks occasionally or only when it's convenient for him, that's a red flag. True effort means ongoing interest, not just temporary excitement. It's easy for someone to be enthusiastic at the beginning of a connection, but real investment shows in how they maintain that enthusiasm over time. This phrase also plays a significant role in determining whether a relationship is progressing naturally. In healthy relationships, both people should feel equally engaged. If you are always the one initiating plans, it may be a sign that the other person is not as invested as you are. However, when a man actively asks when he can see you again, he is taking responsibility for nurturing the connection. This makes it easier to relax into the relationship, knowing that both people are contributing equally to its growth. In some cases, a man might hesitate to ask this question if he is unsure about how you feel. If you notice that he seems interested but isn't making plans, it might help to create an open and welcoming space where he feels comfortable expressing his interest. Some men fear rejection or assume that if a woman is interested, she will make it obvious. Subtle encouragement, such as mentioning your availability or showing enthusiasm when you do spend time together, can make a difference. It's also essential to set your own standards. If a man is not making an effort to see you again, it's a sign that he may not be the right person for you. Instead of waiting for someone to step up, focus on those who show genuine interest and consistency. A relationship should not feel like a constant guessing game. It should feel like a mutual desire to be together. Beyond romantic relationships, this principle applies to all aspects of life. Whether in friendships, professional connections, or personal goals, people who value something make the effort to keep it in their lives. If someone truly appreciates your presence, they will take steps to ensure that they continue to be around you. A man who asks, "When can I see you again?" is making a clear statement. He values the time spent with you and wants to build on it. The most important thing is to recognize that effort, appreciate it when it's genuine, and not settle for anything less than someone who actively chooses to be in your life. When a man says, "I was just thinking about you," it's a powerful statement that reveals what's truly on his mind. In a world full of distractions, responsibilities, and competing priorities, the fact that you have occupied his thoughts enough for him to acknowledge it is significant. This phrase is more than just casual conversation. It's a window into his emotional world, a subtle way of saying that you matter to him, even when you're not physically present. At its core, this phrase signals emotional investment. People don't typically spend time thinking about those they don't care about. If a man reaches out just to tell you that he was thinking about you, it's because you hold a place in his life that goes beyond convenience. It means that at some point in his day, something reminded him of you, whether it was a song, a place, a conversation, or just a random moment of quiet reflection. The fact that he chose to tell you this means he wants you to know that you're not just another person in his life. You're someone whose presence lingers in his mind. This phrase also reflects a level of vulnerability. Many men are taught to keep their emotions guarded, to avoid expressing too much too soon, and to play it cool in relationships. So when a man openly admits that he was thinking about you, it's a sign that he feels safe enough to express his feelings. He's not just making small talk, he's letting you into his thoughts in a way that is both genuine and meaningful. There's also an element of reassurance in these words. In any relationship, whether new or established, one of the most common concerns people have is whether or not they are on the other person's mind. When a man takes the time to tell you that he was thinking about you, it eliminates any uncertainty. It provides a sense of security, letting you know that you are not the only one invested in the connection. Relationships thrive when both people feel seen, valued, and appreciated, and this simple phrase does exactly that. Beyond just the emotional aspect, the timing of when and how a man says this phrase can reveal a lot about his intentions. If he sends a message in the middle of a busy workday, during a trip, or at an unexpected time, it means that his thoughts of you were strong enough to break through the routine of his day. That carries more weight than a generic good morning text or a message sent out of habit. The sincerity behind these words is what makes the difference. If he consistently reaches out with this phrase in a way that feels genuine and unforced, it's a strong sign that he truly values your presence in his life. It's also worth noting how you feel when you receive this message. Do you feel warmth, excitement, and a sense of connection? Or do you feel uncertain, wondering if he says this to multiple people? Your intuition plays a key role in understanding whether his words match his actions. A man who genuinely thinks about you will back up his words with consistency. He won't just say he's thinking about you, he will show it through effort, through planning time together, through remembering the little details about you, and through prioritizing your presence in his life. Some men may use this phrase casually as a way to keep a connection going without real depth. If a man only reaches out with this phrase late at night when he's bored or when he needs something, it's important to recognize the difference between genuine affection and convenience. A man who is truly interested will think about you at all times of the day, not just when it's convenient for him. He will reach out in ways that make you feel appreciated, not just like an option when nothing else is going on. Another key aspect of this phrase is the way it fosters emotional intimacy. When someone tells you they were thinking about you, it naturally invites a deeper conversation. It opens the door for you to ask, "What made you think of me?" or "What was on your mind?" These kinds of exchanges create meaningful connections, allowing both people to share moments, memories, and emotions that bring them closer together. It's not just about the words themselves, it's about the conversation and connection they inspire. In long-term relationships, this phrase holds just as much importance as it does in the early stages. When life gets busy, routines take over, and responsibilities pile up, it's easy for couples to get caught in the day-to-day motions. A simple, "I was just thinking about you," can be a reminder that even in the midst of everything, love and connection still exist. It's a way to let someone know that they are valued, missed, and appreciated, even when life gets hectic. There is also a psychological component to this phrase. Knowing that someone is thinking about us naturally makes us feel closer to them. It reinforces the bond between two people and strengthens emotional attachment. Humans are wired to seek connection, and when we know that someone is thinking of us, it creates a sense of belonging. This is why this phrase, though simple, has such a profound effect. It's also worth mentioning that men and women express emotions differently. While some women might openly talk about their feelings, many men use actions and small statements like this to communicate their affection. For some men, saying, "I was just thinking about you," is their way of saying, "I miss you," or "You're important to me," without explicitly using those words. Understanding this can help you see the deeper meaning behind what may seem like a casual statement. When you hear this phrase, take a moment to appreciate what it truly means. It's not just about the words themselves, it's about the sentiment behind them. If a man consistently tells you he was thinking about you and follows it up with meaningful actions, it's a strong sign that he genuinely cares. True connection is built through small moments like these, moments that remind us that we are valued, that we matter, and that someone, somewhere, is holding us in their thoughts even when we're not around. When a man says, "I can't stop thinking about you," it's one of the most powerful phrases he can say, as it reflects a deep emotional connection and genuine desire for the person he's speaking to. This phrase is more than just a compliment or an attempt to flatter. It is an open declaration of how much impact you have on his thoughts and emotions. The intensity behind this statement speaks volumes about how deeply he's been affected by your presence and what you bring to his life. At its core, this phrase reveals a sense of emotional attachment. When someone cannot stop thinking about another person, it shows that they are constantly drawn to them even when they are not physically present. It goes beyond fleeting attraction or momentary curiosity. It means that the person has left a lasting impression on their mind, one that lingers long after the moment has passed. For a man to express this, it signals a level of emotional investment that reflects not only his admiration for you, but also his growing attachment. This phrase also implies that the man is genuinely moved by your personality, your energy, and the way you make him feel. People don't think about others constantly unless they have a deep connection with them. He might be thinking about how you make him feel alive, how your presence brightens his day, or how your interactions bring him joy. When a man can't stop thinking about you, it means that you are not just occupying his mind momentarily, but that there's something about you that resonates deeply with him. Whether it's your kindness, humor, intelligence, or the way you communicate, the act of thinking about someone can be a deeply personal experience. When a man admits that he can't stop thinking about you, it signifies a level of vulnerability. It's not always easy for people to express their emotions, especially when it comes to matters of the heart. By sharing this sentiment, he's allowing himself to be open and honest with you, giving you a glimpse into how much you matter to him. It can be a little scary for some men to admit that they are emotionally affected in such a strong way, as it risks making them feel vulnerable. But when they do, it is often an indicator that they are willing to take emotional risks in order to connect with you on a deeper level. Moreover, when a man says, "I can't stop thinking about you," he's often indicating that he has an emotional and mental connection that extends beyond surface level attraction. This isn't something he says casually. He's telling you that your presence in his life is more than just about physical attraction or infatuation. It's about who you are as a person, how your essence has left an indelible mark on his heart and mind. This is the difference between a passing fancy and genuine emotional investment. The phrase also reflects a sense of longing and desire. In relationships, whether new or established, there are moments when two people are so drawn to one another that the distance between them, whether physical or emotional, can feel almost unbearable. When a man says this, it might indicate that he longs to be near you, to hear your voice, or to spend more time with you. This longing is a natural part of emotional connection, and it's an expression of how much he values your company. It suggests that his thoughts are consumed by you in a way that makes him want to be with you more, to learn more about you, and to explore the bond you share. This phrase also reveals a deeper level of care and attentiveness. If he can't stop thinking about you, it means that you've made a significant impact on his thoughts and emotions, enough that you stay on his mind throughout the day. His mind isn't consumed with distractions or other things. He is thinking about you, which signals that he is truly focused on building a connection with you. People are drawn to things and people who spark their curiosity, ignite their passion, or bring out their best qualities. When a man says he can't stop thinking about you, it means that you've sparked something in him that he wants to nurture and develop further. In the context of a relationship, this phrase can also be a reassurance. Relationships, especially new ones, are filled with uncertainties. It's easy to question how the other person feels, whether they are equally invested, or if they are thinking about you the way you're thinking about them. This phrase eliminates any doubts. It lets you know that you are not just another passing thought to him. You are someone who occupies a significant portion of his thoughts. And that's a sign of emotional and mental commitment. However, it's important to pay attention to the context in which this phrase is used. Words alone don't create a lasting connection. Actions do. If a man says he can't stop thinking about you but doesn't follow up with meaningful actions such as consistent communication or taking steps to spend time with you, then it's important to question the authenticity of his feelings. A person who truly can't stop thinking about someone will want to take the necessary steps to bring them closer, not just keep them as a fleeting thought. When a man says, "I can't stop thinking about you," it's essential to recognize the importance of emotional reciprocity. Relationships are built on mutual feelings, so if this statement is followed by efforts to strengthen the bond, it indicates a strong desire to move things forward. If the feeling is not mutual, or if actions do not support the words, it may be an indication of a one-sided connection. For women, or anyone receiving this phrase, it's natural to feel flattered, but it's also an opportunity to reflect on the deeper meaning behind it. Does this phrase align with his behavior? Is he showing consistent interest, or is he saying things without following through? Genuine emotional investment is always supported by actions. If he's truly thinking about you constantly, it will reflect in how he treats you, how often he reaches out, and how he prioritizes your needs and desires. In addition, understanding the intensity behind this phrase can help you better gauge the emotional landscape of the relationship. If you feel that his thoughts about you are consistent and sincere, it's a strong sign that he sees you as someone worth investing in. His thoughts about you are not random or occasional. They are frequent and meaningful, demonstrating his deep desire to cultivate something lasting. This phrase, while powerful, should be taken in the context of overall behavior. Words alone can only say so much. It's the actions that follow them that tell the true story. If a man consistently expresses his feelings of being consumed by thoughts of you and backs them up with meaningful efforts to spend time together, listen to you, and understand you, then it is clear that his feelings are genuine. His thoughts have transformed into a desire to build a connection that is both emotionally and physically real. When a man says, "I want to take care of you," it speaks volumes about his intentions, values, and the level of emotional investment he's willing to put into a relationship. This phrase is more than just an offer of financial or physical security. It's a declaration of his desire to provide, protect, and support in a way that transcends the superficial aspects of a relationship. It's a statement that combines both affection and responsibility, showcasing a willingness to create an environment where the other person feels valued, safe, and cared for. At its core, this phrase is about protection. When a man says he wants to take care of you, he is expressing a desire to be your rock, to stand beside you during the challenges life throws at you. It's an acknowledgement of the vulnerability that comes with being in a relationship and a promise to help shield you from the emotional, financial, or physical hardships that may come your way. This phrase goes beyond a simple offer of assistance. It represents an emotional commitment to stand by you in both good and bad times. But it's not just about protecting you from external threats. It's also about creating a sense of emotional safety. Many people long for a relationship where they can be themselves without fear of judgment or rejection. When a man offers to take care of you, he is signaling that he wants to provide a space where you feel emotionally secure. He wants you to feel comfortable opening up, sharing your vulnerabilities, and expressing your true feelings without the fear of being misunderstood or hurt. Emotional security is one of the cornerstones of any lasting relationship. And this phrase indicates a desire to cultivate that kind of safe environment. In addition to protection, this phrase also signifies a sense of responsibility. To take care of someone is not a light commitment. It involves making conscious decisions that prioritize their well-being, whether it's their emotional health, mental stability, or physical safety. When a man says this, he's acknowledging that he sees you as someone worthy of his attention, effort, and care. It's not a casual statement, but a serious offer of his time, energy, and resources. It's about saying, "I'm here to support you and do what I can to ensure that you thrive." Whether that's helping you achieve your goals, taking care of your needs, or simply being there when you need me. This phrase is also indicative of his values. Men who offer to take care of someone often hold deep-seated values around loyalty, respect, and commitment. They see relationships not as transactions, but as partnerships where both individuals contribute to each other's growth and happiness. When he expresses his desire to take care of you, it reflects his belief in the importance of shared responsibility and mutual support. This doesn't mean he sees you as someone incapable or dependent. It means he wants to be a partner who enhances your life, not detracts from it. Another layer of this phrase is about emotional maturity. To say, "I want to take care of you," requires a level of selflessness and empathy that isn't always present in more superficial relationships. It suggests that the man is thinking beyond his own needs and desires and focusing on what you need to feel secure, loved, and cared for. He understands that relationships require effort, and he's willing to invest that effort to build something meaningful. Emotional maturity is about recognizing that relationships aren't about taking, they're about giving. A man who is willing to take care of you is showing that he has the maturity to handle the responsibilities that come with being in a loving, supportive partnership. This phrase can also indicate that he wants to be there for you, not just when things are easy, but also when they are difficult. Everyone faces moments of struggle, whether it's personal, professional, or even emotional. And during those times, it's the presence of a caring partner that makes all the difference. When a man says he wants to take care of you, it's an invitation to trust him, to be there when life isn't so easy. It's a promise that he will be there to help you navigate the challenges, whether that means offering advice, providing comfort, or simply being a listening ear. Taking care of someone also involves understanding their needs, desires, and limitations. It's about being attentive and proactive and making sure that they are not only physically cared for, but emotionally and mentally supported as well. It's a willingness to learn what makes them happy, what they need in moments of stress, and how to provide the right kind of support. A man who genuinely wants to take care of you will take the time to understand what makes you feel loved, valued, and safe. However, it's important to note that this phrase should not be interpreted as controlling behavior or an attempt to diminish your independence. Genuine care is about support, not domination. A man who says he wants to take care of you is not suggesting that you need him to survive or that you cannot take care of yourself. It's about him wanting to be a partner who enhances your life, someone who makes the burdens of life a little easier to bear. True care in a relationship means supporting each other's autonomy while still being there for each other when needed. It's a balance between respect for each other's individuality and the desire to nurture the shared bond. Another key point is the consistency of action. Words like, "I want to take care of you," are only meaningful if they are backed by consistent, thoughtful actions. Anyone can say that they want to take care of someone, but it's the way they act on that promise that truly matters. Does he follow through when you need support? Is he there for you in the small, everyday moments as well as in the more significant challenges? Consistency is a vital element of true care. This phrase also reflects a desire for deep connection. To want to take care of someone is to recognize the value in their presence in your life. It's a sign that you are important to him, that he views the relationship not as a casual encounter, but as something that holds real meaning. Relationships based on mutual care and respect create a foundation for growth, trust, and lasting connection. Ultimately, when a man says, "I want to take care of you," it's an expression of emotional depth, maturity, and commitment. It's a promise to support, protect, and nurture the connection between you with a deep understanding of the effort it takes to build a lasting, meaningful relationship. Whether it's through small gestures of kindness, thoughtful acts of service, or being there when life gets tough, the phrase reveals a deep emotional investment in the partnership and a willingness to contribute to its growth and well-being. If a man truly wants you, he won't leave you confused. He won't make you chase. He won't make you feel less than. So listen to what he says. But more importantly, watch what he does. And if you don't hear these phrases, if he's inconsistent, distant, or making you wonder where you stand, then my friend, he's not your guy. Stop waiting for mixed signals to become clear ones. You deserve better. Now, go out there and act like the high-value person you are. Because when the right one comes along, you won't have to question it. You'll know. Have you ever said all the right things to a man, but still felt like something's missing? Maybe you're loving him deeply, showing up fully, trying your best to connect, but somehow the emotional bond feels weaker than it should, like he's close but still holding something back. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Here's the truth. Most women have been taught that if you just love hard enough, if you're loyal enough, if you support him as he is, then everything will magically fall into place. But what if that's a myth? What if love alone isn't enough to make a man stay deeply, unshakably connected to you? Here's the problem. So many women underestimate the power of their words. Not flattery, not manipulation, but the kind of words that touch a man at the core of who he is, his identity, his purpose, his masculine drive. Because no matter how strong or self-sufficient he appears on the outside, every man silently craves something most partners never think to give him: specific recognition, spoken with conviction in the moments that matter most. And here's the kicker. When you learn how to say the right words in the right way, you don't just get his attention, you earn his respect, his devotion, his depth. You become the woman he chooses again and again, not just because you love him, but because you see him. This video is not about quick tricks or sugar-coated advice. It's about emotional power, inner growth, and relationship mastery rooted in timeless principles that align with Stoicism, the ancient philosophy that teaches us to lead with clarity, courage, and self-awareness, even in love. When you combine that kind of grounded emotional intelligence with these 6 phrases, you're not just attracting a man, you're awakening the strongest version of him. You're unlocking his masculine instinct to love you harder, protect you deeper, and commit more fiercely. So if you're tired of surface-level relationships, of wondering what he's really thinking or why he pulls away when things get real, stay with me. What I'm about to share with you will flip your understanding of male psychology upside down and empower you to speak straight into his heart. These phrases aren't about controlling a man, they're about inviting him to rise. And if you use them with honesty, intention, and strength, you'll see results that feel almost magnetic. That's the Love Stoic way. Wise, confident, emotionally awake. Ready to unlock what most women never say, but every man desperately needs to hear? Then stay close. Because number 1 on this list might just change the entire way he sees you. 1. You make me feel safe. When you tell a man, "You make me feel safe," you are not offering a casual compliment, you are speaking to one of his deepest masculine instincts. A man doesn't just want to be desired, needed, or even loved. He wants to feel essential. At the core of his identity, whether he realizes it consciously or not, is a powerful need to protect and provide for the woman he cares about. In a world that constantly demands he be strong, silent, and self-sufficient, the idea that his presence brings a sense of safety to the woman he loves unlocks something ancient in him, something primal, emotional, and absolutely magnetic. Think about the last time a man did something small, seemingly insignificant, just to make sure you were okay. Maybe he checked to see if you got home safely, walked you to your car, noticed your mood shift in a crowd, and leaned in quietly. These aren't just gestures, these are instincts. And when you acknowledge them, when you tell him directly, "You make me feel safe," you're not just appreciating what he does, you're affirming who he is. And that changes everything. Because here's what most women don't understand. Safety isn't just about locking doors or paying bills, it's about emotional grounding. A man wants to know that when you're in his arms, you can exhale. That when life throws its chaos at you, he is the one place you don't have to wear armor. That when you feel vulnerable, overwhelmed, or uncertain, his presence is what calms your heart. Not because he fixes everything, but because with him you feel like you can breathe. How powerful would it be if the next time he was holding you, instead of staying quiet, you leaned in and whispered, "When I'm with you, I feel completely at ease. I feel like I don't have to worry because you've always got me." Those words wouldn't just make him smile, they would shift something deep inside, because now he knows he's fulfilling the most sacred masculine role in your life. Not just as a lover, but as your emotional home. And here's what happens next. When a man feels needed in this way, not in a needy or dependent sense, but in a grounded, emotionally intelligent way, he rises. He shows up harder, he leads more clearly, he listens more deeply, he becomes more protective, more present, and more purposeful. This is the foundation of a truly connected, high-value relationship. But there's something you must remember. Just like in Stoicism, where true strength is not loud but steady, your words must be backed by congruent energy. If you say, "You make me feel safe," but your actions constantly reflect distrust, questioning, or emotional volatility, he won't believe you. Words are powerful, but alignment is everything. This is what makes Love Stoic different. It's not just about what you say, it's about how you live your truth. When you say those words with sincerity, when your energy, your presence, your trust reflect that safety is truly what you feel with him, it ignites his most noble instinct. To be your protector, your calm, your shelter. And let's be honest, in today's world, a man rarely hears these words. He's told to be strong, but not celebrated for it. He's expected to show up, provide, absorb stress, suppress emotion. But who sees that effort? Who thanks him not just for the big wins, but for the emotional backbone he provides every day? You do. That's what sets you apart. You're the one who doesn't just see his actions. You understand what they mean. And when you reflect that understanding back to him in this one simple but deeply powerful phrase, you remind him that he's not just playing a role. He's fulfilling a purpose. And that purpose is you. Let's go deeper. Safety isn't only about physical protection. It's about emotional regulation. A stoic man wants to be the eye of your storm, the one who doesn't flinch when you're overwhelmed, who stays calm when emotions run high, who creates emotional structure when life feels chaotic. If you recognize that and tell him so, it gives him even more reason to show up in that way. Because now he knows you don't just see what he does, you feel it, you trust it, you depend on it. Not from weakness, but from wisdom. And that is a high form of feminine intelligence. Knowing when to lean in, when to soften, and when to recognize that allowing a man to protect you is not weakness. It's invitation. It says, I trust your strength enough to let go of mine. It's not submission. It's clarity. And men feel this distinction at their core. When a man feels that kind of trust, when he sees that you feel safe in his presence, he steps into his role more completely than ever before. His purpose becomes sharper. His confidence expands. His devotion deepens. And if you've ever wondered why some women seem to get the very best version of a man, why he commits more deeply, shows up more fully, leads with more confidence, it's because he feels essential to her. Not in a desperate way, in a sacred one. And that all begins with this phrase, you make me feel safe. But remember this, if you're using this phrase manipulatively, if you say it just to get something from him, he'll feel it. Real masculine energy is tuned into truth. It may not always speak it, but it senses everything. So don't speak these words unless you mean them. And when you do, don't hold back. Make eye contact. Let your voice slow down. Let the softness of your truth be the thing that carries the message, not just the words themselves. And then watch what happens. Watch how his shoulders relax. Watch how he breathes deeper. Watch how he instinctively pulls you closer, not just physically, but emotionally. Because now you've touched something that no one else has. You've reached the part of him that wants to protect, to hold, to show up again and again. Not because he has to, but because he's honored to. That's the love stoic difference. And that's just the beginning. What happens when you show him not just that you feel safe, but that you respect who he is? That's what we're going to explore next. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. 2. I respect you. Respect. It's one of those words that gets thrown around a lot in relationships, yet rarely understood at the level where it truly matters. You've probably been told your whole life that love is the foundation of a lasting bond. And yes, love matters. But here's what no one talks about. Love without respect means nothing to a man. You can be affectionate, loyal, devoted, but if he doesn't feel respected by you, he will slowly begin to withdraw. He may still be physically present, but emotionally something inside him shuts down. He doesn't just need your love. He needs to know you look up to him, admire the way he thinks, value his decisions, and trust in the man he is becoming. And when you say the words, I respect you, with truth behind them, you aren't just complimenting his behavior. You are affirming his core masculine identity. You are speaking to the part of him that wants to lead, that wants to protect, that wants to take on responsibility and shoulder the weight of life, not just for himself, but for you. So let's go deeper. What does respect really mean for a man, especially through the lens of Stoicism? It means being seen as capable. It means being allowed to solve problems without being second-guessed. It means not being belittled, corrected, or constantly questioned over the small things. And more importantly, it means being trusted to think, to decide, to move forward without being micromanaged. Think about this. How often do you try to help, guide, suggest, improve a man out of good intention, but underneath it sends the message that you don't fully trust his judgment? This is where many women accidentally create emotional distance. When a man feels disrespected, especially by the woman he loves, it cuts deeper than anything he hears in the outside world. The world can doubt him. His boss can overlook him. Strangers can criticize him. But when you don't see him clearly, it shakes his entire foundation. And the opposite is just as powerful. When you say, I respect the way you handled that, or I trust your decision, you are not just boosting his ego, you're reinforcing his identity. You're saying, I see you, I believe in your mind, I trust your strength. And this to a man is sacred. It awakens his integrity. It deepens his commitment. It anchors his love. In Stoicism, respect isn't loud. It's steady. It's measured. It's offered not out of fear or flattery, but because you recognize strength, and you name it. That's what makes it powerful. It's not about obedience or submission. It's about acknowledgement. It's the act of saying, you are a man I admire. I may not agree with everything, but I honor how you move through the world. Do you know how rare that is? How few men hear those words from a woman they love. and how profoundly a man shifts when he does. But let's be clear, respect is not something you offer blindly. It's not about enabling bad behavior or tolerating disrespect. You don't respect a man instead of holding him to high standards. You respect him because you believe in the greatness he is capable of. You respect his potential, his growth, his journey. You call out his strength when he forgets it. You remind him of his leadership when he doubts it. And in return, he starts rising toward that standard, not because you forced him to, but because you believed he could. Let me give you a real-world moment. Say he's going through a difficult time. Maybe he's lost direction in his work. Maybe he's unsure about the next step. Maybe life has punched him in the gut. In that moment, the easiest thing is to give advice, or criticize, or try to take over. But what if instead you simply said, "I know you'll figure this out. I respect the way you've always handled challenges." Do you realize how powerful that moment would be? You've just told him without needing to fix anything that you trust him as a man, that you see strength where he sees struggle, and that simple sentence becomes fuel. Respect also shows up in how you speak to him. Tone matters. When you choose kindness over sarcasm, clarity over criticism, admiration over micro-corrections, you change the entire dynamic of the relationship. You create space for connection, not conflict. And let's not forget the nonverbal cues. Looking him in the eye when you say, "I respect you," with a soft voice and calm energy, is 10 times more impactful than a forced "good job." While scrolling on your phone, men feel respect in your eyes, your posture, your willingness to let them take the lead in areas they're strong. Respect is also about valuing his opinion, even when you disagree. It's not about agreeing with everything he says. It's about making space for his voice. Ask yourself, do I listen to understand, or do I listen to respond? Because when a man feels heard, not just tolerated, he leans in. He engages more deeply. He speaks more vulnerably. He trusts you. And that's when real intimacy begins. Another layer of respect is allowing him to express his masculine energy freely. In today's world, many men feel like they need to tone down their strength to make others comfortable. But when you encourage his assertiveness, when you admire his decisiveness, when you celebrate his natural leadership, you give him the permission to be fully himself. And guess what happens next? He gives you more of himself. He becomes softer where it matters, stronger where it's needed, and more committed where love grows. This is where the love stoic perspective shines. It's about emotional wisdom. It's about being the kind of woman who doesn't need to control, to feel secure, but leads with trust, respect, and grounded influence. You don't shrink to please him. You don't dominate to protect yourself. You stand in your own feminine power, and you choose to honor his masculine essence. And in that sacred polarity, love becomes electric. So how do you put this into action today? Start with awareness. Notice the moments where you might be minimizing his effort, or questioning his decisions without cause. Then shift. Begin with one phrase. Try this. "I really admire the way you handled that today." Or even simpler, "I respect you." Say it with sincerity. Let it sit in the silence that follows. Let him absorb it. You may be surprised how deeply it lands, because it's not about ego, it's about being seen. And when you speak respect into a man's life, he doesn't just love you more, he respects you more. He protects what you two are building. He fights for it. He shows up when it's hard. Why? Because you believed in his strength when the world tried to strip it away. And there's nothing more sacred than that. That's how you go from being liked to being remembered. So if you're watching this right now, and this part of the message has stirred something in you, if it reminded you of a time you withheld respect because you didn't know how powerful it was, or if it opened your eyes to something deeper, then do this. Like this video and comment number 1 below to let me know it spoke to your heart. And if you want more truth like this, truth that isn't sugar-coated, that honors both your feminine wisdom and his masculine soul, hit subscribe and join this growing love stoic community. We go deeper here. We get real, and we become better together. 3. I love the way you think. There's a subtle but powerful truth about men that most women never fully grasp. A man's mind is not just how he processes the world, it's how he defines his worth. While society may focus on physical strength or financial success as indicators of masculinity, a man often places his deepest pride in his ability to think, analyze, and problem solve. This is why the phrase, "I love the way you think," is one of the most disarming, soul-stirring things you could ever say to him. Not because it flatters his ego, but because it acknowledges a part of him that is rarely appreciated, his inner world. You see, a man's thoughts are not random. They are strategic, often focused on solutions, risk assessments, long-term planning, and how to protect or elevate the people he loves. He may not speak often, but that doesn't mean his mind is quiet. He might not always explain how he gets from point A to point B, but trust this, every decision he makes is filtered through logic, responsibility, and impact. And when you as a woman pause long enough to truly see that process and say, "I love the way you think," what you're really doing is granting him visibility in a world where he often feels unseen. Let's bring in Stoicism here, because this philosophy is the perfect lens through which to understand this masculine drive for rational clarity. Stoicism teaches us that thought governs action, and that wisdom, not impulse, is the highest human expression. When you affirm a man's mind, you are honoring the very same virtue that Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus revered: mental discipline, self-command, the ability to stay grounded in principle, even when life is uncertain. And you're doing it in a way that no surface compliment can ever touch. Because let's be honest, telling a man he's hot or funny or sexy is fine. It strokes the surface. But telling a man you love his mind, that's personal, that's intimate, that's rare. And men remember that not just in passing, they carry it with them. It becomes a quiet echo in their thoughts, especially when they're facing doubt or pressure. Reminds them that someone not only sees how they think, but admires it. And here's the deeper truth. Most men don't speak their mind fully, because they don't feel it's safe to do so. Society tells them to man up, be decisive, never waver. But inside, many of them are silently refining thoughts, second-guessing decisions, mentally preparing for what might go wrong. They live in their heads more than they let on. And that makes your attention to his thought process a kind of emotional invitation. It tells him, "I want to know how your mind works, because it matters to me." That's where real connection is born, not just in shared attraction, but in intellectual intimacy. Picture a moment where he's explaining something. Maybe it's how he solved a problem at work, or his opinion on a social issue, or a quiet idea he's been turning over in his mind. If you interrupt, correct, or dismiss him in that moment, he may shut down. Not because he's sensitive, but because he no longer feels it's safe to reveal what's sacred to him, his thought leadership. But if you lean in, listen fully, and say with genuine interest, "Wow, I love the way you just explained that," you just open the door to a deeper layer of him. He will trust you more, share more, and from there love you more. And trust me, that's rare, that's powerful, that's feminine intelligence, in its purest form. It's also essential for polarity. Feminine energy thrives in emotion, sensation, expression. Masculine energy thrives in clarity, structure, reasoning. When you admire his thinking, you strengthen the polarity that keeps attraction alive. You aren't trying to match him logically. You're celebrating the part of him that grounds and guides the relationship. This balance is what fuels the love. Stoic dynamic. It's not about domination. It's about admiration, magnetism, and mutual expansion. So how do you recognize when a man's mind is shining? It's not always in big speeches or grand ideas. It's in how he solves daily problems, how he navigates stress without collapsing, how he makes decisions with long-term impact in mind. When he thinks through how to support your goals, manage conflict without escalation, or adjust plans to make your life smoother. Those are moments when his thinking is working for you. And when you see it, name it. "I love the way your mind works. You always have a clear perspective, even when I don't." That one sentence can dissolve weeks of emotional distance. And this isn't just about praise, it's about intimacy. A man doesn't truly open up until he knows his inner workings are not only accepted but valued. And once he feels that, you'll be amazed at the mental, emotional, and even romantic space he begins to offer you. He'll share more, plan more, think ahead with you in mind. Why? Because now he sees that his mind is a bridge, not a wall, a connection point, not a battlefield. But here's the thing, you can't fake this. Men are intuitive in ways we don't give them credit for. If you try to compliment his mind without genuinely being present with him, it won't land. He'll feel it's performative. But if you're truly listening, if you're interested in how he forms his logic, processes information, and arrives at clarity, he'll feel safe to go even deeper. And the quality of your relationship will reflect that depth. Let's also talk about disagreement. One of the highest forms of respect you can give a man is to disagree without disrespect. You don't need to agree with everything he says to love the way he thinks. In fact, when you challenge his ideas with grace, curiosity, and respect, it shows you're listening, not idolizing. That balance is electric. It shows you have your own mind, and you honor his too. And this brings us to the emotional layer. A man may not always express his heart through feelings, but he does through thoughts. When he shares a vision for the future, or explains how he would handle a conflict, or maps out how he wants to support you, that's love expressed mentally. If you miss it because you're waiting for a more emotional expression, you'll miss the moment completely. But if you receive it, if you meet his logic with admiration, you create a loop of connection that expands over time. And that's where most relationships fall short. Women wait for emotional declarations while men are offering love in a different language, through ideas, plans, protection, structure. If you learn to read that language and say, I love how you think through things, you always have a plan, and it makes me feel grounded. You just spoke to the heart of his masculinity. And that's how bonds are built, not through noise, but through nuance. That's how you build a relationship that lasts. Not through drama, but through deep understanding. That's how you step into your power. Not by demanding more, but by recognizing what's already being offered in a different form. This is emotional wisdom. This is love stoic in action. It's about listening with your soul, not just your ears. It's about finding beauty in his logic. It's about honoring his unique way of navigating the world and loving you. And in doing so, you don't just become his lover, you become his mirror, his peace, his greatest confidant, and he will never forget you for it. 4. I appreciate what you do. Gratitude is not just about manners, it's about meaning. And in a world where men are often expected to perform, provide, and protect, without ever asking for recognition, appreciation becomes more than a nice gesture. It becomes a lifeline. When you look at the man in your life and say, I appreciate what you do, you're not just acknowledging his actions, you're validating his identity. You're telling him that the silent efforts, the decisions he makes behind the scenes, the physical and emotional energy he pours into your shared life matter. And when a man feels that what he does matters, he doesn't just feel good, he feels purposeful, he feels seen, he feels valuable. This phrase taps into one of the most undernourished emotional needs in men, the desire to be acknowledged, not for what they say, but for what they do. Because here's the unspoken truth. Men are rarely celebrated for their consistency. They are often overlooked for the quiet way they hold things together. No fanfare, no spotlight, just steady, reliable effort. And over time, when those efforts are ignored or taken for granted, it wears on them. It creates emotional distance. It drains their drive. And yet, with just a few sincere words, you can flip that entire emotional dynamic on its head. This is why appreciation is not a surface-level compliment. It is emotional reinforcement. It's a way of saying, I see you, I know how much effort you put in, and it doesn't go unnoticed. Think about the last time he stayed up late to finish something for work, fixed something around the house without being asked, paid attention to the little details that make your life easier. Did you say anything? Did you pause to tell him it mattered? You might be thinking, well, he should do those things. Maybe, but if you live in a world where nothing you do is ever acknowledged, even the things you're supposed to do, how long before you feel invisible? That's what happens to so many men. They keep showing up, they keep giving, but inside they're wondering if it's even worth it because no one's telling them it is. But you can, with one phrase, one shift, one act of recognition. You might think he already knows how much you value him, but trust this, he needs to hear it. Because unlike women who often bond through words, men bond through contribution, through doing, through effort. And when that effort is noticed, it connects him more deeply than any romantic line or grand gesture ever could. And that's where the Stoicism comes in. Stoic philosophy teaches that value lies not in what we feel, but in what we do. In the constancy of action, in the endurance of commitment, in the unseen labor of love. When you speak appreciation into the life of a Stoic man, or a man who lives by those values, you aren't just being sweet. You're speaking his native language, you're reinforcing his identity, and you're giving him emotional fuel to keep showing up strong. But like all powerful things, appreciation must be real. It cannot be transactional. If you say it to manipulate or reward, he'll feel it and disconnect. But if you say it with heart, if you pause in a quiet moment and let your voice soften, when you say, I see how hard you work for us. I really appreciate everything you do, even the little things. You'll see a visible shift in his body, in his energy, in how he looks at you. Because now he knows he's not just performing in this relationship, he's partnering, and that matters deeply. Appreciation also strengthens emotional respect. When you recognize a man's effort, you are honoring his dignity. You're saying you matter. Your time, your choices, your sacrifices. They're not expected, they're appreciated. And that moves a man from emotional survival into emotional investment. It makes him want to give more, protect more, build more. Not because he's obligated, but because he's inspired. And isn't that what you want? A man who's not just doing the minimum, but who's thriving in the relationship because you see the best in him. That starts here. That starts with appreciation, but it also lives in your tone, your timing, your energy. You don't need a grand speech. You need presence. Say it when he least expects it. When he's doing something ordinary, when he looks tired, when he's distracted, that's when it lands hardest. That's when he realizes you're paying attention. That's when he feels most loved. This is the love stoic way. It's not about drama. It's about depth. It's not about performance. It's about presence. You want a love that grows stronger over time. Make appreciation a habit, not just on birthdays or anniversaries, but on Mondays, on tired days, on nothing special days, because those are the days when your words matter most. You also don't have to limit appreciation to direct statements. Sometimes it shows up in the way you smile at him after he makes a decision, in how you respond when he takes the lead, in how you give space when he's working hard, but greet him with softness when he returns. That's appreciation in action. That's love in motion. That's what makes a man feel emotionally safe enough to go even deeper with you. Because once he knows you see him, he will offer you more of himself, his thoughts, his worries, his desires. And that intimacy rooted in mutual recognition is unshakable. So today, ask yourself, have I let him know recently that I notice what he does? Have I paused to reflect his value back to him? If not, you now have the chance to change that. And if you have, consider going one level deeper. Get specific. I appreciate how you always check in on me, even when you're busy. I notice how you never forget the little things, and it makes me feel so loved. Those are the phrases that echo. Those are the moments he remembers, when things get hard. Those are the affirmations that fuel his love and strengthen his devotion. Because a man who feels appreciated doesn't just stay, he commits, he protects, he builds, he rises. And it all starts with a few simple words. If this message resonated with you, if you're starting to feel that shift, that quiet recognition of what you may have missed, or what you now want to cultivate, then I invite you to pause right now and like this video. If you've made it this far and it stirred something in you, comment number 1 below so I know you're with me. And if you want more content that blends emotional intelligence with timeless truth, the heart of what makes relationships not just last, but thrive, then hit subscribe and join this powerful Love Stoic community. Together we're not chasing fantasy, we're building something real. And the next phrase we explore, it will open a whole new layer of emotional impact. Stay with me. 5. I am proud of you. There is something quietly transformative about the phrase I am proud of you. When it comes from the woman a man loves, it carries more than encouragement. It delivers recognition. In a world that demands results, performance, and constant proof of worth, this phrase speaks directly to a man's emotional core. It affirms his efforts, his resilience, and his commitment to becoming better, even when no one else sees the struggle behind the scenes. Unlike admiration for his success, which can feel fleeting or conditional, telling a man you are proud of him acknowledges not only what he has achieved, but who he is becoming through the process. It says, I see the man you are, not just the victories you've gained. That distinction changes everything, because most men walk through life without ever hearing those words. They carry the weight of expectation, of providing, of protecting, of solving problems, and doing it all with composure. Society rarely asks how he's holding up. It simply expects him to keep going. He is taught to suppress emotion, to keep his head down, to deliver results. But deep down there's a quiet hope that someone will see what it's costing him, that someone will look at the burdens he carries and say, you're doing more than enough. When you become that someone, you are no longer just his partner. You become his emotional refuge. And that connection is not only sacred, it's unbreakable. In the world of Stoicism, a man's measure is found not in the ease of his journey, but in the integrity with which he faces adversity. A Stoic man isn't asking for comfort, he's asking for clarity. He wants to know that his persistence is seen, his endurance is valued, and his inner code is recognized. When you tell a man, "I am proud of you," especially in moments where he doubts himself, you are not offering fluff. You are reinforcing his inner framework. You are confirming what he hopes is true, that who he is, even in imperfection, is worthy, that his effort, regardless of the outcome, is enough. Consider what it means to stand beside a man who is quietly battling pressures he rarely speaks of: career uncertainties, financial decisions, family tensions, the weight of leadership. Even when he seems calm, inside he may be questioning whether he's measuring up, whether he's disappointing you, whether he's falling behind. And in those moments, your pride in him becomes more powerful than any romantic gesture. It becomes a reset for his confidence. It becomes the voice he holds onto when his own self-belief wavers. And here's the nuance. Being proud of a man does not mean excusing his flaws. It doesn't mean lowering standards or ignoring where he needs to grow. True pride is born out of truth. It sees the mistakes and still honors the intention. It acknowledges the struggle and still calls forth the strength. When you say, "I am proud of you," and you mean it, you are telling him, even in your becoming, "I see your worth." And that creates the emotional safety he needs to keep going, to keep showing up, to keep building, not just for himself, but for you. It also empowers him to be more vulnerable with you. Men don't open up easily, not because they don't feel deeply, but because they've been conditioned to hide it. But when they know that their growth is acknowledged, not just their results, they begin to relax, to reveal more, to let you in. And when that happens, you gain access to a part of his heart that most people never see. The part that dreams, the part that doubts, the part that longs to be loved, not for what he can do, but for who he is. That's where true intimacy begins. When you say, "I am proud of you," make it personal, make it specific. Let him feel that you are paying attention, not just to the big wins, but to the quiet courage it takes to keep showing up. Tell him, "I saw how hard you worked on that project, and I'm proud of how you handled it." Or even when things didn't go your way, "I'm proud of how you stayed grounded." These words are not just comforting, they're empowering. They tell him that his effort is seen, that his presence matters, that his leadership is felt, and that gives him the emotional strength to push forward, especially when life feels uncertain. This is where the love Stoic approach becomes more than just relationship advice. It becomes a way of life. It teaches you to lead with empathy, to speak with intentionality, and to nurture a relationship where both people grow stronger together. When you are proud of a man, you don't just celebrate his light, you hold space for his shadow. You give him room to be human. And in that space, he begins to thrive.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to hide his fears. He doesn't need to pretend to have it all figured out. He knows he can be in process and still be worthy of your pride. And that kind of relationship, it doesn't just survive, it transforms both of you. The emotional impact of pride is also long-lasting. When a man feels your pride, he internalizes it. It becomes part of his self-image. It shapes how he sees himself, not just in your eyes, but in his own. It becomes a quiet force that carries him through seasons of uncertainty. When no one else believes in him, when he feels alone in his efforts, he will remember that you believe in him, and that memory becomes momentum. But here's the caveat. Like all power formations, "I am proud of you" must be authentic. It must come from real observation, not obligation. Men can feel when your words are hollow. They know when you're praising them out of habit, not heart. So don't say it just to say it. Say it when you mean it. Say it when you're moved. Say it when you see something that deserves to be named. That's when it lands. That's when it anchors. That's when it builds emotional legacy. Because over time, those small moments of recognition stack. They form the emotional foundation of your relationship. They build trust. They deepen love. They create emotional momentum that keeps the bond alive through all of life's changes. So ask yourself today, when was the last time I told him I was proud of him? Not just for what he did, but for how he showed up. If it's been a while, now is the perfect moment. Look for the small things, the everyday wins, the consistent effort, and then say the words. Say them with conviction. Say them with love, and watch what happens. Because a man who knows you are proud of him will become more of the man you're proud of. He will rise not because you pushed him, but because you believed in him. And that more than anything will anchor your love in something deeper than attraction or compatibility. It will root it in trust, in mutual growth, in sacred partnership. That is the heart of stoicism and love. Not cold detachment, but disciplined devotion. Not emotional avoidance, but intentional expression. And when you bring this energy into your relationship, you don't just make him love you more, you make him feel safe to love you with everything he's got. And that is a bond no outside force can shake. 6. I believe in you. There is a moment in every man's life, often many moments, when he quietly wonders if he has what it takes. He might not say it out loud. He might even look confident, composed, and in control. But behind the steady expression and quiet strength, there is often a silent question echoing in his mind. Am I enough? This is the inner dialogue many men live with. Because no matter how successful, disciplined, or externally respected a man becomes, he is constantly measuring himself against an invisible standard, a standard built by culture, upbringing, and his own relentless expectations. And the weight of that silent pressure can be overwhelming. This is why the phrase, I believe in you, is so powerful, because it cuts through the noise. It meets a man at his most vulnerable inner space and says, you don't have to carry this alone. It reminds him that someone sees his potential, even when he's struggling to see it himself. And that kind of belief, it's more than support, it's transformation. When a woman looks into the eyes of the man she loves and says, I believe in you, she is not just offering comfort, she is activating something sacred inside him. She is restoring his courage. She is refueling his discipline. She is grounding his masculinity in purpose, not performance. And most importantly, she is separating his worth from his outcomes. In a world that constantly tells him he is only as good as his last win, your belief tells him he is worthy even in the middle of his struggle, especially in the middle of his struggle. This is where Stoicism offers deep wisdom. Stoic philosophy teaches that a man's value is not found in what happens to him, but in how he responds. That life's external chaos means nothing if his internal clarity is intact. But even the most stoic man can feel lost sometimes. Even he can stumble. And in those moments, your belief is not about rescuing him. It's about reflecting him back to yourself. It's about saying, I've seen you at your best. And even when you're at your lowest, that man is still in there. That's what belief. It reminds him of who he is when he's temporarily forgotten. And when that belief is consistent, not just when things are going well, but when they're hard, when he doubts, when he fears, then he begins to rely on your belief as part of his foundation, not as a crutch, but as a compass. The belief you hold in him becomes the light he uses to find his way back to himself. And that is a love that moves mountains. But here's the nuance. Saying, I believe in you, only works when it's rooted in truth. Blind belief can feel hollow. It must be grounded in real observation, not just hope. You must be able to look at him and see the discipline, the character, the intention. Even if the results haven't shown up yet, you must believe in his essence, not just his outcomes. And when you do, he feels your words not as pressure, but as permission, not as expectation, but as empowerment. Your belief becomes oxygen to his ambition. It becomes calm in his chaos. It becomes stability in his storm. Think about how often men receive performance-based feedback, promotions, awards, acknowledgement. All of it is tied to what they do. Rarely are they affirmed simply for who they are. But when you say, I believe in you, you're doing just that. You're saying, I believe in your integrity, your growth, your process. I believe in your vision, even if no one else sees it yet. That's what changes a man. That's what makes him look at you not just as a lover or a partner, but as a co-creator of his journey. That's what anchors his loyalty. That's what deepens his love. That's what builds legacy. The most powerful belief isn't spoken once. It's spoken through repetition, through action, through energy. It's spoken in how you respond when he fails, when he gets rejected, when he's misunderstood, when the world tells him he's not good enough. Your voice in those moments becomes louder than the noise outside. Your belief becomes the truth he chooses to hold on to. And this is especially important for high-achieving men, those who constantly push, build, provide, compete, because underneath that success often lies fear. Fear of being a disappointment, fear of being unseen, fear of being replaced.
But your belief becomes the antidote. It tells him you're not just a title, you're not just a paycheck, you're not just a strong body or a brilliant mind. You are a man I trust, a man I admire, a man I know will find a way. When you speak to that version of him, you give him something the world cannot. You give him home, and in return he offers you everything. His loyalty, his depth, his devotion. This is the love Stoic way. Not about idolizing a man, but about calling him forward. Not about pretending he's perfect, but about loving him enough to hold up a mirror to his best self. And when you do this consistently, you create a bond that no setback, no criticism, no external chaos can disrupt. He becomes more grounded, more intentional, more emotionally available, not because you demanded it, but because you believed it was already within him. Let's take this even deeper. When a man knows you believe in him, he begins to believe more in you. He trusts your intuition. He values your presence. He includes you in his decisions, not out of obligation, but out of deep emotional respect. You become not just someone he loves, but someone he leans on. And that level of partnership is rare. It's sacred. It's what every man craves, even if he doesn't know how to ask for it. And when he finds it, he protects it. He invests in it. He expands it. But remember, belief must be mirrored in your actions. If you say, I believe in you, but constantly question his choices, challenge his leadership, or speak doubt into his dreams, your words will fall flat. He needs to feel your belief, not just hear it. That means listening without interrupting. That means trusting his process. That means supporting his risks, even if they scare you a little. That means offering steady encouragement instead of anxious control. When you align your energy with your words, your belief becomes undeniable. It becomes a sanctuary for his soul, and in that sanctuary he grows. So ask yourself today, where can I express belief in him more clearly? Where have I allowed fear or frustration to override faith? And then make the shift. Start small. Say, I know things are hard right now, but I believe in the way you're showing up. Or even when you're unsure, I trust your path. These words may seem simple, but to a man under pressure, they are life-giving. They are the emotional fuel he needs to keep going, not just for himself, but for the love you're building together. Because at the end of the day, men don't need perfection from their partners. They need perspective. They need to know that someone sees the man inside the mission, and that someone is you. When you say, I believe in you, you become more than a witness to his life. You become a force in his transformation. And that is the most beautiful role you can ever play. So if this message touched something inside of you, if you're feeling a new level of clarity about what belief really means, then take a moment now to like this video. It tells me you're ready for this depth. And if you're truly walking this path with me, go ahead and comment number 1 below. It's our way of anchoring the insight and owning this truth together. And of course, if you haven't yet, hit subscribe and become part of the Love Stoic community. Because what we're building here isn't just content, it's a movement, a return to truth, a deeper way of relating, a space where feminine wisdom meets masculine strength, and both rise together. Love in its highest form is not a performance, it is presence. It's not loud, it's not showy, it's not built on temporary passion or borrowed lines. It's built through steady actions, quiet recognitions, and words that nourish the why soul, rather than decorate the surface. These 6 phrases: you make me feel safe, I respect you, I love the way you think, I appreciate what you do, I am proud of you, and I believe in you are not scripts. They are not tactics. They are not about manipulation or strategy. They are invitations, openings, truths, that when spoken with intention and congruence, unlock levels of depth most couples never reach. What they do is speak to the architecture of a man's inner world, not just the boy seeking approval, but the man seeking purpose. And when you learn to speak to that part of him, not from neediness or expectation, but from grounded feminine awareness, you change the energy of the relationship. You move from pressure to partnership, from emotional noise to emotional nourishment, from reactive cycles to intentional connection. This is the wisdom that Stoicism and modern love rarely combine. But when they do, the result is powerful, because you are no longer just reacting to who he is in this moment. You are reflecting who he is capable of becoming. You're showing him that love is not a demand he must fulfill, but a strength you already see in him. And that kind of love, that kind of clarity, it inspires a man to become more, not for approval, not for survival, but for devotion. These 6 phrases are mirrors. They reflect back his strength, his worth, his purpose. They remind him that the path he's walking, no matter how imperfect or uncertain, is still sacred, because someone walks beside him with unwavering faith. And you as that woman become not just a partner, but a force, a muse, a grounding presence he returns to. Not because he's weak, but because you make him strong. This is what Love Stoic is about. It's not about shortcuts. It's not about games. It's about embodying a new standard of intimacy, where truth is the currency, and respect is the rhythm, where masculine and feminine are not in competition, but in collaboration, where your words don't just land, they lead. So as you carry these truths forward, remember this: your voice, when aligned with sincerity, wisdom, and emotional maturity, is one of the most transformative tools in love. Use it not to control, but to uplift, not to win, but to witness, not to fix him, but to free him. Because when a man is seen, truly seen for who he is and who he is becoming, he will rise, and he will rise with you, beside you, for you. That's not fantasy. That's not theory. That's what happens when love stops being reactive and becomes intentional, and you've just taken the first step.